Chapter 136. The ghost envoys in the beast-fighting Colosseum seem to come back to their senses at this time. Catch it, quickly catch it for me. The disappearance of the heaven stage strange beast must have something to do with this rabbit, we can't let it run away. A hint of panic flits through those round mung bean eyes. Its short legs jump even faster. The fat rabbit's figure turns into a stream of light in a split second, scuttling back and forth in the crowd, trying to escape. However, there are too many people tracking it. There are 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, surrounding the fat rabbit tightly. Not long after, a ghost envoy pounces on the fat rabbit and lifts it up by the neck. Little bastard, let's see where you can run to now. No matter how you look at it, this bastard is just an ordinary rabbit. How could it possibly swallow a heaven stage strange beast? Whether it swallowed it or not, wouldn't we know once we cut open this little bastard's belly? Saying that, a dagger appears in the ghost envoy's hand that's holding the fat rabbit, and he's about to slide it down the fat rabbit's bulging belly. However, the knife hasn't fallen yet. Suddenly, the sound of a zither buzzes in his ears. Immediately after, a sharp pain comes from the hand that's holding the knife, and the dagger falls to the ground in a flash. And the tendons in the hand that's holding the rabbit are directly cut off. The ghost envoy howls in pain, and he immediately loosens his grip on the rabbit. In a split second, the fat rabbit's figure turns into a stream of light, and with a whoosh, it scuttles into a familiar embrace. A whining sound comes from its throat, and its chubby body can't help but tremble because of the lingering fear. Strangely, the whining it makes doesn't sound like a rabbit at all, but more like a young and tender whine. Mayan hugs the little guy in her arms, smoothing its fur, and teasingly says, "Did you learn your lesson this time? Let's see if you still dare to run around in the future." The fat rabbit sticks out its tongue and licks her fingers. Then it turns over in her arms, and its fat belly comfortably rubs against her. Then it happily closes its eyes and goes to sleep. This dead rabbit. Mayan is speechless. In this world, is there a more useless, lazier spiritual pet than this fat rabbit? She really wants to just strangle this guy to death. Who are you? You actually dare to hurt the people of my ghost city, are you tired of living? June Mayan, let's see where you can escape to. 2 voices sounded at the same time. In front of them were the ghost messengers of the Colosseum, the group of people who had just caught the fat rabbit. Behind them were the pursuers sent by Magistrate Sue. Almost every one of them was an expert at the peak of heaven stage or above. It could be said that the current Mu Yen had nowhere to go, and there were pursuers behind her. It would be hard for her to escape even if she had wings. June Mu Yen, I advise you to obediently surrender. Otherwise, if we make a mistake and injure your beautiful face and body, it will be too late for you to regret it. Mayan holds the Tian Mo Chin horizontally across her chest, her expression leisurely, her eyes biting cold. Is that so? Why don't you try and see how you can fail? As soon as she finished speaking, her jade-like fingers gently plucked the strings. The clanging of weapons and armored horses flowed out from her fingertips. At the same time, the notes turned into sound blades and shot towards the ghost envoys. Back in the fog forest, Mayan's zither sound blade could only hurt one person with each sound. At this moment, the sound blades could already turn into a meteor-like rain of swords, making it impossible to dodge or evade. After a few short breaths, the ghost envoys blocking in front of Mayan all screamed and collapsed. The remaining ghost envoys widened their eyes in horror, looking at Mayan like they're looking at a monster. It's not like the people of Ghost City haven't seen a pre-celestial powerhouse. Chapter 137. In the blink of an eye, several peak Earth stage and early Heaven stage ghost messengers actually fell to the ground. Facing June Mayan, they don't even have the slightest bit of power to resist. June Mayan, don't run if you have the guts. Magistrate Sue's bellow comes from a distance. What followed was the terrifying pressure of an inborn expert. And it wasn't just one, but 5. Mu Yan, however, chuckled lightly, and said in a clear voice, "Magistrate Sue, have you gone senile? This lady is a woman, so naturally I don't have any guts. On the other hand, if Magistrate Sue is willing to be like me and be a gutless person, there's no harm in me staying behind to discuss with Magistrate Sue." "Oh. Slut, slut. I'll kill you. I'll kill you." Magistrate Sue rushes over like a gust of wind, but there's no sign of June Mayan in front of him. Where is he? Where is that bitch? The ghost envoy trembled. She ran away. Trash. Magistrate Sue swings a slap over, ruthlessly flipping that ghost envoy to the ground. "You can't even keep a woman, what's the use of the ghost city? Find that bitch for me, dead or alive. Whoever finds that bitch will be heavily rewarded." The ghost city has been turned upside down. All the guests have been driven to the beast-fighting coliseum and are not allowed to leave. The ghost envoys in the ghost city are all dispatched, conducting a carpet search, just to find a young girl who hasn't even reached 20 years of age. However, no matter how they searched, they couldn't even catch Mu Yan's shadow. On the contrary, bad news kept coming from various places in the ghost city. "Magistrate Sue, not good, not good, that Wanren coup has collapsed, all the slaves have run out. Magistrate Sue, this is bad. The armory, all the weapons in the armory have been emptied. Magistrate Sue, things aren't looking good. Those strange beasts and slaves at the back of the beast-fighting coliseum have all been released from their cages. Moreover, I don't know why, but all of them seem to have gone berserk. The original draft can't control them anymore. Magistrate Sue's eyes are bloodshot, and his eyes are about to split open. He's so angry that he's about to explode. June Mayan, June Mayan. I will tear you into 1,000 pieces. Bitch, I'm going to tear you to pieces. Ah. At this moment, Magistrate Sue wished he could tear June Mayan's corpse into 10,000 pieces, but unfortunately, he couldn't even touch the corner of June Mayan's clothes. June Mayan is like a cat playing with a mouse, freely shuttling through the ghost city. Wherever they went, they would wreak havoc and create chaos. The Tian Mo Chin Zither sound blade is not a joke. Under the support of powerful profound energy, even a sturdy building could be instantly destroyed into rubble. Thus, one side chased while the other fled. In less than an hour, the flourishing ghost city, which originally represented the pinnacle of Xia An's power, has unexpectedly been turned into ruins everywhere. It's a tragic sight. In the end, there was not only anger in Magistrate Sue's eyes, but also panic. The ghost city was destroyed. If he still can't catch Mayan today, he will definitely die an incomparably unsightly death. Thinking of this, Magistrate Sue's twisted face revealed a crazed killing intent and malevolence. Today, in the entire ghost city, there is only one place that hasn't been destroyed or plundered. Warehouse for drafts. Therefore, June Mayan will definitely go there. Magistrate Sue took his people and rushed to the location of the medicinal ingredients warehouse as fast as lightning. With a bang, the door was kicked open. Chapter 138. As soon as he says that, a clear and moving laughter, like silver bells, comes from inside the room. TSK, you guys are really slow. I've been waiting here for a long time. The door opens, revealing the empty warehouse. In the center of the warehouse, cabinets are stacked high and high. At the top, a young girl in green sits leisurely, her black hair lightly dancing, her smile languid, looking down at the few people who rush into the room. If it's not that June Mayan, who else could it be? Many of the medicinal herbs that are stored in the Ghost City's draft warehouse are priceless and priceless. They can also be regarded as the Ghost City's treasures. However, the warehouse in front of them is completely empty, there's nothing left. All the herbs once again, they've been plundered clean by Mayan. Magistrate Sue's chest heaves up and down, looking at Mayan with eyes that can almost spit fire. But the next moment, his face suddenly changes, revealing a greedy look. June Mayan, you have a spatial treasure on you, right? Otherwise, with so many things in the Ghost City, how would she be able to plunder everything cleanly? In the Yenwu continent, a portable space is a legendary treasure. Even in the Ghost City, there's only one Ghost Emperor at the highest level. But this June Mayan has a spatial treasure on her. If he can seize this spatial treasure, then he can be absolved of today's crime. What Magistrate Sue can think of, the other pre-celestial powerhouses can also think of. Their reactions are surprisingly fast, and in the blink of an eye, they've already surrounded Mayan. Miss June, if Magistrate Sue had spoken inappropriately just now, and offended you in any way, we can apologize on his behalf. Our Ghost City has always treated you as an honored guest, why must we fight to the point of life and death? This time, the one who speaks is a middle-aged man who looks like a scholar. This man looks younger than the others. But the moment Mayan looks at him, she slightly narrows her eyes. Although they're both pre-celestial, this man is clearly a lot stronger than Magistrate Sue and the others. When the man sees Mayan looking over, he looks up at her snow-white complexion, and a touch of amazement flits through his eyes. Then he hooks up his lips, revealing a refined and gentle smile. This one is Chao Wendao, also a magistrate of Xia An's Ghost City. If Miss June doesn't mind, why don't we sit down and have a good talk? In fact, the 5 pre-celestial powerhouses here are all Ghost City's magistrates. After all, no matter how strong the Ghost City is, pre-celestial powerhouses aren't like radishes or cabbages that can be found anywhere. Chao Wendao shows kindness to Mu Yen. Magistrate Sue's eyes flash with unwillingness and resentment, but he doesn't say anything in the end. Today's matter has turned out to be like this. Although the other magistrates are also helping him to capture Mu Yen, however, she still held a grudge against him in her heart. It was obviously a good thing to recruit a powerful alchemist, but it was unexpectedly handled like this by this idiot Su Wenhu. Even the Ghost City was almost demolished. I'm afraid that regardless of the outcome of today's matter, Su Wenhu's position as an infernal judge will no longer be maintained. Hearing Chao Wendao's words, Mu Yan's lips curled into a playful smile. Sit down and have a good talk. If we talk, you won't force me to become Ghost City's exclusive alchemist, or are you saying that if we talk, you won't covet the secret space treasure on me? Chapter 139. This is the first time I've heard someone explain forcibly seizing in such a fresh and refined way. Mayan mockingly says, but what if I don't want to? Chao Wendao's eyes suddenly darken, and he slaps the air with his palm. With a loud bang, the dozen or so medicine cabinets under Mayan are smashed into pieces. Wood shavings flutter and dust fill the sky. When the ghost envoys who are chasing after Mayan see this scene, they take a step back with pale complexions. They look at Chao Wendao with awe and worship in their eyes. This June Mayan is definitely going to die today. These are 5 magistrates, 5 pre-celestial powerhouses. So what if June Mayan is also a pre-celestial? 1 against 5, is there still a need to guess what the outcome will be? Isn't it June Mayan's own stupidity? Since she escaped, she should have obediently hid. She was actually stupid enough to stay in the warehouse. Now that she's being besieged by Magistrate Chao and the others, how can she still have a way out? In the crowd, Ru Yan's complexion is deathly pale. She looks at old Tao at the side. Her voice is already trembling. It's me, It's me who harmed Miss June. Miss June accepted my invitation. What should I do? How can I save Miss June? Old Tao grits his teeth. Miss June has given me a new lease of life. Old Tao, can't just watch her die. Miss Ru Yen, you stay here. Old Tao, will go outside the ghost city to get reinforcements. Before I come back, you mustn't let Miss June die. Ru Yan's complexion is still deathly pale, but there's a persistent light in her eyes. Okay, even if I have to risk my life, even if I have to kneel on the ground and beg, I will definitely protect Miss June. I won't let anything happen to her. Old Tao nods, and his figure shuttles through the crowd, quickly disappearing. Ru Yan is staring at the direction of the warehouse. When the wood shavings and dust scatter, a blue figure, like a slowly blooming blue lotus, floats down from the sky. Chow Wendao looks at the girl's picturesque face, and says in a deep voice, June Mayan, I'll give you one last chance. If you obediently surrender, I guarantee that the ghost city will absolutely let bygones be bygones for your actions today. Magistrate Chow, why are you still being so long-winded with her? Magistrate Su finally couldn't take it anymore, and let out an angry roar. This slut killed my disciple Luo Fei. We can't let her off today no matter what. Saying that, his eyes revealed a sinister and vicious look. There's one more thing that Magistrate Chow probably doesn't know, this slut has a very precious son. When the time comes, we'll capture her son and torture him. No matter how stubborn this bitch is, won't she still have to obediently surrender? Mayan gently plucks the Tian Mo Chin in her hands, her voice is soft and her smile is charming. Magistrate Su, I could have easily escaped from under your eyes, but I've been waiting here, not leaving. Do you know why? Why? The strings of the Tian Mo Chin are plucked, making an irregular but pleasant sound. Mu Yan's words were accompanied by the sound of the zither, because before I leave, I still want your life. In this world, all the people who humiliated and hurt Xiaobao, not a single one of them would be spared. As soon as he finished speaking, his slender and fair fingers suddenly moved. The gentle music turned into a roar that was like a monstrous wave. Piak! 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 Chapter 140. The huge ceiling is on the verge of collapse, and dust is flying everywhere. Outside the warehouse, the ghost envoys widen their eyes in horror. Their bodies are shivering out of instinct. The fight between 6 pre-celestial powerhouses, even if it's just a little bit of pressure leaking out, it's enough to make their blood churn, making it difficult to breathe. But no matter how scared and uncomfortable they are, no one leaves. Every pair of eyes is firmly fixed on the 6 intertwining figures in the warehouse. As time goes by, the ghost envoys' expressions become more and more frightened. Because, after a quarter of an hour, June Mayan still hasn't been defeated. Half an hour has passed, and June Mayan still hasn't been defeated. The sound of the powerful zither crisscrosses in the surging internal force. It forcibly cleaves open a hole. 5 magistrates, 5 pre-celestial powerhouses, besieging a girl, but there's no progress for half an hour. Such a situation has never happened since the opening of the ghost city. Ru Yan clasps her hands together, tightly clasping them, her heart incessantly praying for Mayan's safety. However, the next moment, Chow Wendao's palm suddenly hits Mayan's chest. The girl's figure flies backwards like a kite with a broken string. The ghost constables cheered in an instant. Ru Yan's heart is raised. But no one expected that Mayan, who's in midair, would suddenly turn around, facing Magistrate Su's direction. The sound of the Tian Mo Chin suddenly changes, like a rustling cold wind, full of murderous intent. Chow Wendao's complexion changes. Wenhu, be careful. Magistrate Su sneers, want to hurt me with a mere sound blade, you're looking down on me, Su Wenhu. As he speaks, his figure doesn't retreat, but advances instead, suddenly pouncing towards Mayan. To put it bluntly, the strongest skills of a Zither master are nothing more than long-range attacks and confusion. As long as he gets close, no matter how powerful Mayan's sound blade attack is, it'll be useless. When he catches this slut, he'll make her beg for death. However, it was also at this moment that he saw a charming smile blossom on the young girl's face right before his eyes. Just like the red spider lily that blooms in the blood-soaked land, enchanting and full of death. The next moment, the Tian Mo Chin in Mayan's hand suddenly disappears, and a sword appears in her hand. Boundless profound energy surged out of her body like an avalanche. That was the sound of a blade piercing into flesh. Magistrate Su's blood-red eyes were wide open. He slowly lowered his head and looked at his chest. A long sword had already pierced through it. The tip of the sword trembled slightly. As the dark force surged into the rice, he could feel that his heart was breaking bit by bit and his life force was flowing out. But, how could it be? How could this be? They had 5 inborn experts, while the other party was just a young girl who wasn't even 20 years old. Why did he lose? How could he possibly lose? The girl in front of him smiled lightly. Her smile was as bright as the morning sun and as beautiful as a peach. Do you think I only know how to transform Zither sound into a blade? In fact, I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Withdrawing the long sword, Magistrate Su's body fell straight down. Until the moment of his death, his eyes were still staring straight ahead, unable to rest in peace. He really can't understand why the ghost city would go all out to besiege and kill a little girl. Why did he still die? There was a deathly silence in the hall, and even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Chapter 141. At this moment, a trace of regret rises in his heart. Because Mu Yen is too strong. Strong enough to make people tremble in fear. And they have made such an enemy for the ghost city. If they can't kill Mu Yen today, then in the future, as Mu Yen continues to grow, the consequences would simply be unimaginable. So today, Mu Yen must die. A cold light flashes in Chao Wendao's eyes, and he sternly says, "Everyone, we can no longer keep this person alive." The other 3 judges also have the same grave expression, slowly nodding. Surrounded in the middle, Mu Yan's complexion is as white as ice crystals, and the blue clothes on her body are already stained with blood. Her current situation is very bad. Under the siege of the 5 people, the internal force within her body has already been consumed by more than half. Chao Wendao's palm even makes her chest ache faintly. Even if she escapes the attacks of these 4 people, she has no way to escape in the ghost city. For Mu Yen, this is already a dead end. It should be a desperate situation that would make anyone panic and fear. But in such a hopeless situation, Mayan actually smiles. A pair of peach blossom eyes are charming and bewitching, like water shrouded in mist. There's a flame that slowly sprang up from the bottom of her eyes. It's excitement, it's joy, it's the desire to fight. She wants to see to what extent she can fight without the help of the Tian Mo Chin. She also wants to know how much her strength has improved after 4 years in the mountains. The long sword draws a beautiful arc in the air, and the tip of the sword points in Chao Wendao's direction. Want to kill me? Then let's see if you can do it. On the streets of Xia, and 2 figures are galloping like lightning. Han Yi, who is following behind, sees Jun Shang's back, and feels the terrible, almost uncontrollable pressure coming from his body. His whole person simply doesn't feel good. The ghost city has actually trapped Miss Jun, and they even want to kill her. God, isn't this courting death? No. Not only are they courting death themselves, but they also want the entire Yanwu continent to be buried together with this group of idiots. If Miss June is really injured. Han Yi simply can't imagine how angry Jun Shang would be, and how he would react. That group of idiots from the Ghost City, they're courting death themselves, can't they not implicate others? Who? The Ghost City is sealed, no one is allowed to leave. The ghost envoy guarding the entrance of the Ghost City hasn't even finished speaking when he suddenly spits out a mouthful of blood and flies far away. Han Yi follows Di Mingju, entering the Ghost City's complex unimpeded all the way. As the number of ruined buildings increases, the smell of blood becomes thicker and thicker, and the breath that Di Mingju exudes also becomes more and more frightening. Even Han Yi, who is following behind him, can't help but shiver. Not to mention the ghost envoys in the Ghost City. Before they could even get close, they had already fainted and foamed at the mouth. In just a short while, they had already arrived at the location of the medicinal herb warehouse. This place could no longer be called a warehouse. It was a pile of ruins. The air was thick with the smell of blood. 5 figures wrapped in cold saber light and sword shadows crisscrossed. Han Yi takes a closer look and sees that the girl in cyan is being besieged by 5 pre-celestial powerhouses. She's covered in blood, and he immediately sucks in a mouthful of cold air. This time, Jun Shang is really going to go crazy. Before he could finish this thought, Di Mingju's figure had already soared into the sky, and a shockingly powerful airflow gushed out like an avalanche. Chapter 142. Mu Yan, who was in midair, was suddenly embraced into a wide embrace, tightly hugging her. Mayan, how are you? Are you hurt badly? Does it hurt? The man's hoarse and trembling voice urgently rings out. The hands that were originally tightly holding her seem to remember something. They abruptly loosen, then softly embrace her again. As if she's the most precious treasure. If it's too heavy, he's afraid that she'll hurt, and if it's too light, he's afraid that she'll disappear. Especially when he sees Mayan's blood-soaked clothes, Di Mingju can't help but tremble. Damn it, these people should all die 1,000 times. Even he can't bear to force the slightest bit, the person he holds in the palm of his hand, the person he hides at the bottom of his heart. These dregs actually dare to hurt his Mayan. Mayan is fighting to her heart's content, still wanting to continue. Being suddenly interrupted by Di Mingju like this, she only feels extremely depressed. But when she turns her head and sees this insufferably arrogant man in front of her, she stares blankly at first, then a trace of warmth flits through her eyes. Don't worry, I'm fine, this isn't my blood. Mayan raises the corner of her mouth, smiling conceitedly and leisurely. These wastes want to kill me, it's nothing more than a dream. When the girl smiles, there seems to be a vast starry sky jumping and twinkling in her eyes. There's pride, conceit, and also a free and easy feeling of looking down on the world. It's only at this time that Mayan is like a 19-year-old girl, cunning, willful, and high-spirited. Di Mingju really loves this appearance of hers. His fingers caress the girl's cold and tender cheeks. His fingertips rub, wiping away the bloodstains on her face. Hiss. With a low cry, Mayan wrinkles her brows. She suddenly takes a step back and angrily says, Di Mingju, do you have a grudge against me? So forceful. I wasn't hurt by this group of wastes, but you've already scratched me. The charming and gentle feelings dissipate in an instant. Di Mingju gnashes his teeth in anger, wishing he could grab this little woman into his arms, ruthlessly gag her little mouth, and ravage her as punishment. Does she know how worried he was just now, how afraid that something would happen to her? But before he could get angry, Mayan's body suddenly softens, and she falls into his arms. In that fight just now, she fought to her heart's content, fighting 1 against 4 without falling into a disadvantageous position. However, the consumption of the profound qi in his body was too great. The moment he relaxed, he immediately felt as if the last bit of strength in his body had been sucked out. For a moment, he couldn't even stand steadily. Feeling the young girl's soft body tightly pressed against him, the fragrant breath hitting his face, Demingju's entire body stiffens. After a long while, he reached out and hugged her tightly. In a trance, he hears Mayan's whisper, as light as a mosquito, "Demingju, take me home." As soon as she finished speaking, she closed her eyes and fell asleep peacefully. They had just met for the first time. She didn't know why, but when this man appeared, she felt at ease and could rely on him. As long as this man was here, he would definitely help her solve the predicament in front of her. She did not need to be exhausted, nor did she need to support herself. Demingju looks at the girl in his arms, her complexion deathly pale. His complexion suddenly becomes even more frightening than the Azura demon gods. His cold eyes swept over Chao Wendao and the others who had just climbed up from the ground. His hoarse voice sounded like it came from the abyss of hell. "You dare to harm this monarch's woman, all of you deserve to die 10,000 times." Chao Wendao and the other three stood up. Chapter 143. If the other people's coercion is just a kind of imposing manner that makes people tremble in fear. The pressure of this mysterious man in front of them seems to have condensed into a substance. A pair of ice-cold, bone-chilling hands pinch their hearts, and suddenly tighten. They obviously haven't launched any attack, but the four people suddenly grab their throats, open their mouths wide, and let out a terrifying cracking sound. And the entire ghost city's ground begins to emit a violent hum. Large chunks of gravel fall from the already dilapidated ceiling. Not to mention the four judges who are directly under attack. Even the faces of Ru Yen and the others who are hiding on the side are deathly pale, vomiting blood. They want to cry for help, but not a single sound comes out. Even the guests of the ghost city, who were driven to the beast-fighting Colosseum, each and every one of them begins to have difficulty breathing, the internal force within their bodies surging uncontrollably. It's as if an invisible hand has appeared between heaven and earth, firmly grasping the ghost city. With just a little bit of force, he would be able to crush this huge building and the living beings within it. Jun Shang, calm down. Calm down a bit. Han Yi couldn't bear it anymore. He risks death and rushes over, saying in a trembling voice, "Jun Shang, don't forget, this isn't the Shushan continent, it's the Yanwu continent. If you slightly release your coercion, it could make this world collapse. This is the place where Miss Mayan lives." "No, aren't they just a few dregs? This subordinate will handle it for you." Hearing that, Demingju looks down at the girl in his arms. Even though he has tried his best not to let the coercion affect Mayan, the person in his arms still slightly frowns, as if she's sleeping very restlessly. Demingju's hand that is holding Mayan suddenly tightens, a touch of tenderness and heartache flashes through his eyes. The coercion on his body dissipates without a trace in the blink of an eye. Chao Wendao has just escaped from death, no longer caring about his dignity. With a thud, he kneels in front of Demingju. "We were wrong, we had eyes but failed to recognize Mount Tai. Please forgive us, forgive the ghost city." At this moment, Chao Wendao and the other three are really regretting to the point that their intestines are green. The people of the ghost city are used to being tyrannical. How could they have thought that forcing an insignificant apothecary to stay would actually provoke these two fiends? Jun Mayan, a girl of only 18 or 19 years old, is all by herself, yet she has turned their ghost city upside down. She thought that Jun Mayan was already scary enough, but this man that appeared in front of her wasn't scary at all, he was simply an Azura demon awe. Facing this person, they were only left with an instinctive fear. How could they have the slightest ability to resist? Demingju slowly raises his head to look at them, a cold smile appearing on his grave and stern face. He raised two slender fingers and gently slid them from top to bottom. Suddenly, Chow Wen-dao covered his throat and widened his eyes in horror. He opened his mouth, wanting to beg for mercy, wanting to scream, but blood rushed out from his lips and teeth, gushing out from between his fingers. Bang 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 bang. With 4 muffled thuds, the 4 infernal judges collapsed to the ground like corpses covered in blood. On the side, Han Yi sneers, thinking in his heart, injuring Miss Mayan and you still want to escape unscathed? Wasn't that daydreaming? At this moment, Di Mingju's gaze is already looking at the surrounding ghost envoys. Everyone here has a part in hurting Mayan. He would not let a single one of them go. Chapter 144. Honored sir, please be lenient, a cry comes from a distance. Then, a figure is seen approaching from afar as fast as lightning, urgently stopping in front of Di Mingju and Han Yi. They see that the person who has come is in his early 40s, even younger than Chow Wen-dao. But his temples are white, and the vicissitudes of life in his eyes make him look even more incomparably old. Seeing this person, many people in the ghost city cry out in joy. King of Hell! It's King of Hell! We're saved, the ghost city is saved. The person who has come is actually the person in charge of Xiao'an's ghost city, King of Hell Xiao'i. Everyone in the ghost city knows how powerful and frightening the King of Hell is. Although they are all pre-celestial powerhouses, 5 magistrates added together can't compare to a King of Hell. So when they see Xia Yi's arrival, the ghost envoys think that they're saved, each and every one of them almost crying tears of joy. However, what makes them shocked is that when Xia Yi sees Di Mingju, not only does he not fly into a rage, he instead reveals a frightened and vigilant expression. He even instinctively takes a step back. His complexion changes again and again, and he finally slowly cups his hands. This one is Ghost City's King of Hell Xia Yi. May I ask for your honored sir's name? If my ghost city has offended you in any way, I hope that you will be magnanimous and let us go. As long as it's within the scope of our ability, my ghost city is willing to make any compensation. As soon as Xia Yi says this, the surrounding ghost envoys all suck in a mouthful of cold air, their complexions becoming increasingly pale. Even the King of Hell is afraid to this extent. Who is this man? What kind of fiend did they provoke this time? Han Yi sneers, stepping forward and saying, compensation. You injured my madam, do you think that by saying a word of compensation, you can get away with it? Hearing that, a mouthful of old blood gets stuck in Xia Yi's throat, and he can't spit it out. Just now, he glanced at the girl in Di Mingju's arms. Although she's unconscious, she's only exhausted, and not injured at all. And what about his ghost city? Not only are 5 magistrates dead, more than half of the building has collapsed, and all the treasures and belongings have been completely lost. It can be said to be a heavy loss. Shouldn't he be the one who should be compensated? Han Yi sneers, since you have nothing to say, then all of you should die as an apology to my madam. As he spoke, he unsheathed his sword, which gleamed with a cold light. There's no need for Di Mingju to make a move. Han Yi, with 90% of his cultivation suppressed, is already enough to make Xia Yi and the group of ghost envoys tremble, their faces revealing despair. Wait a minute. Suddenly, an aged voice shakily rings out, surrounding and killing Miss June was the doing of Magistrate Su and his men. Me and Miss Ru Yen, we want to risk our lives to save Miss June. Please be lenient and give our ghost city a way out. Old Tao, who had followed Xia Yi in, knelt on the ground with a thud, his face full of pleading. Han Yi narrows his eyes. You risked your life to save my madam. Yes. It's all thanks to Miss June's medicine that I was able to break through the bottleneck. Miss June has given me and Miss Ruyan a new lease of life. How can we just watch as Miss June dies? Old Tao pointed to the heavens and swore, I dare to swear that everything I said is true. Please believe me. The reinforcements that old Tao had requested were none other than the King of Hell, Xia Yi. Chapter 145. But for so many years, he hasn't asked Xia Yi for anything in return. This time, he makes an exception for Mayan. Ru Yan kneels on the ground, her voice choking and trembling. I want to protect Miss June, but I'm too incompetent. In fact, I can't do anything for Miss June. If Your Excellency really wants to punish, then please punish me directly, because Miss June came to Ghost City precisely because she accepted my invitation. But please let the lives of the innocent people in Ghost City go. Han Yi sees that old Tao and Ru Yan are speaking with sincerity, and his complexion improves quite a bit. He turns back to look at Di Mingju. But he sees that Di Mingju doesn't even look at them. He turns around and leaves while carrying the unconscious Mayan. In a moment of carelessness, his figure has already gone several meters away. Seeing the man's cold and lofty figure disappear, Xia Yi and the ghost envoys simultaneously breathe a sigh of relief. Ru Yan and old Tao suddenly collapse to the ground, like they've just survived a disaster. Han Yi doesn't leave right away. Instead, he looks down at all of them. Seeing that the two of you are sincere in wanting to save my family's madam, I can let the rest of you go. But if there's a next time, and anyone in Ghost City dares to disrespect my family's madam, you know the consequences. When everyone hears this, they immediately go wild with joy. Each and every one of them swears that they won't dare to make a move against Mayan again. In the future, when they see Mayan, they will definitely worship her like an ancestor, not daring to be the slightest bit negligent. Han Yi nods in satisfaction. Soon after, his gaze falls on Xia Yi, a mocking smile appearing on his face. I really didn't expect that after 1,000 years, the Ghost City would actually fall to such a state. Can it only be maintained by relying on force and robbery? What a disgrace. Hearing that, Xia Yi raises his head, looking shocked. Your Excellency, what do you mean? The sneer on Han Ye's face slowly recedes, expressionless as he says, go back and tell Guyu, within a month, let him explain clearly in front of Jun Shang how he hurt Madam today. Otherwise, prepare to disappear forever. Xia Yi suddenly widens his eyes, suddenly stands up and exclaims, who are you people? Han Yi doesn't pay attention to him anymore. He sneers, then turns around and quickly disappears. Xia Yi stared blankly at his departing back, unable to come back to his senses for a long while. Old Tao couldn't help but whisper, Yama, what's wrong? Who are those two people? Xia Yi is silent for a long time, only then does he silently murmur, Gu Yu, that's the highest person in charge of the Ghost City, the name of the Ghost Emperor. In the Ghost City, apart from the various Ghost Kings, no one knows of him. Why? Why would that man know? He wanted the Ghost Emperor to appear in front of Jun Shang within a month. What did he mean by that? Xia Yi suddenly turned around, ignoring the doubts of old Tao and the others, and quickly left. He had to report this news to the Ghost Emperor immediately. Xia Yi has an intuition that perhaps the sky of the Ghost City is about to change. Don't worry, young master, your wife is fine. It's just that her profound energy and physical strength were overused, so she collapsed. As long as I rest for a few days and take good care of myself, I'm sure I'll be able to recover. Under Di Mingju's icy gaze, the doctor stutters as he finishes his diagnosis. It's only until Han Yi smiles and asks him to go out and settle the consultation fee that the doctor hurriedly leaves, as if he's been granted amnesty. Chapter 146. Inside the room, there's only Di Mingju and the still unconscious Mayan. He sits down on the edge of the bed, gazing at the girl's sleeping face. The cold light in his eyes slowly becomes softer and softer, more and more persistent. His fingers caress that picturesque and beautiful face. He wants to caress it, but then he remembers her accusation against him in the ghost city, and hangs his hand in the air in annoyance. Mayan's skin is so delicate, as if it could be broken with a blow. If he touches it, what if he hurts her again and wakes her up? Di Mingju frowns. On one hand, he feels that with his identity, isn't touching the woman he likes a matter of course. On the other hand, he remembers Mayan's angry expression in the ghost city, and his heart is apprehensive, unable to put down his hand that's suspended in the air. The doctor's words suddenly echo in his ears, "Your wife is not seriously injured." Mayan is his wife. Di Mingju's ears are slightly hot, and there's an inexplicable joy bubbling in his heart. His gaze slowly moves from Mayan's jet-black hair, her smooth forehead, her long eyelashes, her raised nose, and slowly falls to those light pink lips. Even after a long time, he still remembers the sweet taste of those lips. Every day and every night, he yearns for her in his dreams, longing to taste her again. Even though he promised Mayan that he would pursue her until she fell head over heels in love with him. But since it's a foregone conclusion, isn't it only right and proper for him to exercise a little of his rights as a husband? Di Mingju's ears are slightly red, his eyes burning. One hand props up next to Mayan's face, and his body slowly bends down. Little by little, he approaches those red lips that he's been thinking about for a long time. Just as his lips are about to seize those lips that are as soft as peach blossoms, and properly savor that sweet fragrance, suddenly, a burst of powerful profound energy abruptly attacked from between him and Mu Yen. Di Mingju is caught off guard, and he's pushed back several steps by that force. His charming and gentle desire is interrupted, and Di Mingju's complexion is so unsightly that he wants to kill someone. His cold eyes look at the bedside, at the culprit who disturbed him and Mayan. He sees a little boy who's just taller than the edge of the bed guarding in front of Mayan, coldly glaring at him. The handsome little face is taut, and his pair of ice blue eyes are the same as Di Mingju's, full of vigilance. "What do you want to do to Nyangqin?" The childish voice was cold, full of coldness and sternness. That imposing manner was even more terrifying than an adult who had been in a high position for a long time. But after saying that, Xiao Bao no longer cares about Di Mingju. Instead, he eagerly turns to look at Mu lying on the bed. The person in front of him was extremely beautiful, but her face was so pale that it was almost translucent. Even her originally bright red lips were as white as rice paper. Her long eyelashes drooped, and she was completely silent, as if she would never wake up. Xiao Bao's eyes redden all of a sudden. He clutches Mu Yan's finger tightly, and his little body trembles. Xiao Bao. But he had never been a child who would cry, so he just leaned against the edge of the bed and let out a weak cry like a young beast. Mother, don't leave little Bao. Little Bao will be good." Lying on the bed, Mu Yan seems to sense something, and her long eyelashes tremble slightly. Di Mingju frowns. With a cold snort, he grabs Xiao Bao by the collar, and turns around to walk out. Chapter 147. At this time, how could Xiao Bao be willing to leave his mother? Like a crazed little beast, he began to struggle with all his might. The profound chi of a heaven-stage powerhouse was released without a care for anything else. Di Mingju didn't expect that this little guy's cultivation would be so high. Caught off guard, her clothes were cut by the sword formed from his profound chi. Di Mingju's eyes darkened, coldly saying, "Quiet down for me, she's tired, she's just sleeping, are you sure you want to wake her up?" The man's words startled Xiao Bao, and he couldn't help but lessen his strength in struggling and kicking. "Mother is all right. Just too tired." "Is he asleep?" When he thought about how his mother was fine and wouldn't leave him, Xiao Bao's tightly clenched heart instantly relaxed. The rationality and calmness that did not belong to his age instantly returned. Let me go. Xiao Bao raises his head, not showing any weakness as he glares at Di Mingju. I'm going to see Nyangqin. I promise I won't wake her up. In this world, besides Mayan, who in the three realms would dare to shout at Di Mingju and frown in anger? Those who really dared to be rude to Di Mingju would have long since died without a corpse, and would have been separated to grow grass for 300 years. Did this little guy in front of him eat the heart of a bear and the guts of a leopard? How dare he order him around? Di Mingju wants to get angry. However, looking at Xiao Bao's exquisite features that are 70 to 80% similar to Mu Yan's, as well as those ice blue eyes that are exactly the same as his. There were still traces of red in that pair of stubborn eyes, which represented how scared and panicked the little guy was just now. For some reason, his heart, which had always been as hard as iron, softened a little. Di Mingju gives a cold snort, but he still loosens his hand. As soon as Xiao Bao's feet touch the ground, his small body rushes out like an arrow leaving the bowstring, and he pounces to Mu Yan's side. But this time, his movements are very gentle, and his eyes are full of attachment as he looks at Mu Yan. However, her small fists were tightly clenched. Although that hateful man said that Nyangqin was just too tired and fell asleep. But Xiao Bao knew that his mother had been bullied by bad people, and that she had been injured. When the bad guys bullied Nyangqin, he couldn't stay by her side. He said that he would protect his mother, but he didn't do it. Her big, watery eyes seemed to be covered by a layer of mist, but she stubbornly refused to let the tears fall. On the side, Di Mingju sees the appearance of the little guy forcibly holding back his tears. He doesn't know why, but he, who has always had a heart of stone, unexpectedly feels upset. Just as she was about to open her mouth to speak, she saw the little guy suddenly rubbing his eyes. He carefully moved closer to Mayan and gently kissed her on the cheek. Xiao Bao thought to himself, every time mother kisses Xiao Bao like this, Xiao Bao feels very happy. Xiao Bao kisses mother. Mother, wake up soon, okay? However, seeing this scene, Di Mingju's entire person feels unwell. This little bastard, he hasn't even kissed Mayan yet. Di Mingju grabs Xiao Bao by the collar and lifts him up. Unable to restrain his anger, he doesn't forget to lower his voice. What are you doing? Xiao Bao glared back without showing any weakness. His big eyes were still a little red and moist, but his imposing manner wasn't weak at all. Then what were you doing while mother was asleep? Humph, this shameless lecher, don't think that he doesn't know anything. Just now, he had successfully advanced to the middle heaven stage, and when he came out, he saw this lecher trying to take advantage of his mother. Chapter 148. But very quickly, he coldly snorts, expressionlessly saying, Ben Jun is naturally taking care of your Nyangqin. Unfortunately, his righteous explanation is met with Xiao Bao's disdainful look of "You're deceiving a child." Di Mingju is speechless. He wishes he could pull down this little thing's pants and ruthlessly spank his bottom. One big and one small, the two of them are staring at each other, neither of them willing to take a step back. The door to the room is suddenly pushed open, and Han Yi comes in with a steaming black earthen pot. He lowers his voice, and excitedly says, Jun Shang, this subordinate has inquired, the people of Yanwu continent nourish their bodies, this black bone chicken soup is. Before he can finish, the two people at the bedside turn their heads at the same time, fiercely glaring at him. They growl in unison, get out. Idiot, you're disturbing my Nyangqin's sleep. Idiot, you're disturbing my lady's rest. Han Yi shivers in fright, and the chicken soup in his hands almost falls to the ground. God, why does he have this illusion? It's like he's facing two Jun Shangs. This kind of pressure and disdainful imposing manner hitting him in the face, it's simply making him wet his pants. Before Han Yi could react, a strong gust of wind hits him in the face. He staggers back a few steps. Then there's a bang, and the door closes against his nose. Han Yi trembles in fear as he touches his still intact nose, his eyes brimming with lingering fear. Two Jun Shangs, that's really too scary. Wait a minute, wasn't that little Jun Gongzi just now? How could he be inside? When did he go in? Just as he's thinking, he sees the door open again. Di Mingju carries Xiao Bao, striding out. Xiao Bao is forced to hang on his shoulder, his face flushing red as he angrily says, "Put me down." Di Mingju ignores him and goes straight to the backyard. Han Yi stupidly looks at this scene, his jaw about to drop. Jun Shang is actually holding a child. Although that's not really holding, it should be carrying, but that's the Jun Shang of their family, who has always kept strangers away. Let alone a child and a beautiful woman, even they, who are close to him, can't get within half a meter of Jun Shang. But now, it's fine if Jun Shang admires and pursues Miss Mayan, but he's even willing to be so close to young Master Jun. If the people of the Shushan continent were to see this scene, their eyeballs would definitely pop out. Wait, what is Jun Shang carrying the little Gongzi to do? Could it be that because of jealousy, he wanted to secretly do it with Miss Mayan's ex-husband's child? Thinking of this, Han Ye's complexion goes pale. Miss Mayan is protecting the little Gongzi like an eyeball. If she were to accidentally let the little Gongzi suffer any losses, then Jun Shang would really have no way to ask for a wife. This won't do, he must follow along. If necessary, he will remind Jun Shang to never hurt the little Gongzi. After discovering that he can't resist Di Mingju, Xiao Bao doesn't cry out like an ordinary child. Instead, he clenches his small fists and quickly revolves the internal force in his body. Di Mingju quickly brings Xiao Bao to the backyard. Just as he was about to put him down, Xiao Bao suddenly launched an attack. She patted him on the shoulder, and her small body suddenly leaped into the air. At the same time, the internal force gathered in her palm turns into a sharp blade, and she ruthlessly swings it towards Di Mingju. Di Mingju's expression doesn't even change, and he casually waves his hand. Chapter 149. Xiao Bao's figure falls down from the air, steadily landing on the ground. But his expression is very unsightly. There are countless complex emotions churning in his eyes as he looks at Di Mingju. This man is very strong, stronger than anyone he's ever met. Even stronger than his mother, a lot stronger. But even so, Xiao Bao clenches his small fists, his eyes full of determination. Even if this man is stronger, he won't let him snatch his mother away. Di Mingju looks down at him, expressionless. You should be very clear that you're not my opponent right now. But I can give you a chance. Xiao Bao, what chance? Di Mingju turns his wrist, and a piece of vermilion jade drops down from his palm. There are golden tassels dangling from the jade, gently swaying in the sunlight, emitting a bright light. However, what's more captivating than the tassels is that piece of jade. It's obviously dull in color, and its shape is ordinary, but there are strange veins on it. Gazing deeply at it, it makes people feel as if they're immersed in a vast sea of stars, and even their souls are being cleansed. Xiao Bao has never fancied gold, silver, or treasures, but seeing this piece of jade, he's inexplicably attracted. There's a hint of longing in his big crystal-clear eyes. Di Mingju looks at him and says in a low voice, "I'll give you a quarter of an hour. I won't use mysterious energy, and I won't attack. If you can snatch this piece of jade from my hands within a quarter of an hour, I'll give it to you, and I'll never appear by your mother's side again." Hearing this, Xiao Bao retracts his gaze from the jade pendant, and looks suspiciously at Di Mingju. "And if I can't do it?" "If you can't do it," Di Mingju pauses, and then says in a low voice, "Then you must accept the fact that I'm your mother's husband, your father." Han Yi, who has just arrived, almost stumbles and falls to the ground when he hears Di Mingju's words. Cold sweat is about to roll down his head. "I say, Jun Shangdaran, can you not be so shameless? In order to chase after a wife, you're even starting to trick a child. Not to mention Xiao Bao, even he can't snatch the jade pendant from Jun Shangdaran's hands. Not to mention a quarter of an hour, it's impossible to do it in an hour. Jun Shangdaran, you're bullying Miss Mayan's son like this, aren't you afraid that Miss Mayan will find you to settle accounts?" However, Xiao Bao was not easily fooled. With a taut face, he refused without the slightest hesitation, "Liar, you're not mother's husband." The light in Di Mingju's eyes darkens, saying word by word, "There will come a day when Mayan will become Ben Jun's wife. It's just a matter of time, that's all. But this has nothing to do with you. You only need to know one thing. If you lose today, you must accept the possibility of me being your father in the future." Xiao Bao frowned slightly and didn't say anything. Di Mingju sneers, contemptuously saying, "What? Ben Jun has already let you reach this point, and you still don't dare to try. You said you want to become strong to protect your mother, but you only have this little courage and boldness." No matter how smart Xiao Bao was, he was still just a 4-year-old child. What's more, protecting his mother and becoming stronger were his weaknesses. Goaded by Di Mingju like this, her little face suddenly lifts up, her big eyes bursting with a prairie fire. "Fine, I'll bet with you. If you lose, you're not allowed to snatch my mother from me in the future." As soon as Han Yi hears their conversation, he immediately covers his face in shame and turns his head away. "Jun Shang, can you be any more shameless?" Chapter 150. Because it was different from what he had expected, that Jun Shang was just fooling and playing with children. After hearing that Xiao Bao has agreed to compete, not only does Di Mingju not reveal the slightest trace of a devious smile. On the contrary, he's solemn and respectful, his hands behind his back. He says in a low voice, "Polar domain, Di Mingju, please enlighten me." Little Bao was stunned. He thought that the man before him was playing with him and humiliating him. But at this moment, she saw the man's stern expression and heard his cold voice. However, Xiao Bao could feel his respect for him. This man did not treat him like a child and tease him. Instead, they treated him as an equal opponent, someone who had the same right to speak. All the shame and anger on his young and tender face disappeared. In fact, in the depths of his heart, he even faintly felt the joy and anticipation of being treated as an adult. Xiao Bao also straightened his back, his expression neither servile nor overbearing, and said in a clear and melodious voice of a child, "Qi Yan, Jun Machin, please enlighten me." As soon as he finished speaking, little Bao's figure suddenly vanished on the spot. Han Ye's pupils suddenly contract. With his experience and eyesight, although 90% of his cultivation had been sealed, he had not discovered how the young master had disappeared. The next moment, there was a flash of light in the sky. Xiao Bao's figure flits past Di Mingju's eyes like a stream of light. The profound energy that had not leaked out a moment ago, suddenly poured out in torrents like a huge roaring wave. His short legs seemed to transform into a myriad of leg shadows, ruthlessly kicking towards Di Mingju's chest. A loud bang resounded. His small body flew backward like a cannonball, and he staggered and landed on the ground. Her face was slightly pale. But Han Yi simply can't be bothered to look at him. Instead, he glares at his Jun Shang as if he's seeing a ghost. The tall man was still holding the vermilion jade pendant in his hand. The jade pendant swayed gently, and the tassels shone brightly. It was as if nothing had changed. But Han Yi clearly saw that just just when the little Gongzi used that shadowless kick just now, Jun Shang actually took a step back. But that's his Jun Shang awe. Even if he didn't use his Xian Qi and sealed his spiritual power, his powerful physical body was still unique in the world. Even if he used all his strength to kick Jun Shang, he still wouldn't be able to make Jun Shang budge. However, the little master actually did it. That was only a 4-year-old child. Even if it's the child of the evildoer Miss Mayan, then, isn't that too much of an evildoer? It's just that Han Yi is so shocked by Xiao Bao's performance that his jaw almost drops. However, Xiao Bao was very dissatisfied with his own performance. His 2 small sword-like eyebrows furrowed slightly, and his ice-blue eyes flickered. Di Mingju expressionlessly says, "What? Giving up just like that?" As soon as he finished speaking, Little Treasure moved again. But this time, he doesn't soar into the sky. Instead, he takes slow steps, circling around Di Mingju. Han Yi finds it a bit strange at first. What's the point of circling around Jun Shang like this? Don't tell me you can make Jun Shang confused. What's more, it was so slow. But as time goes by, Han Ye's eyes widen in shock once again, and he even rubs his eyes. Because he discovered that the little young master in front of him had become countless. It's as if dozens of Xiao Bao's clones have appeared in the world, surrounding Di Mingju. It's not like Han Yi hasn't seen this kind of treacherous body technique. Chapter 151. But Xiao Bao only understands mysterious energy, yet he still managed to do it. What kind of powerful body structure does he have, and what kind of astonishing speed does he have to elevate his own speed to be able to achieve this? However, Di Mingju, who is surrounded by Xiao Bao, reveals a disdainful expression. Do you think that you can snatch the vermilion jade from my hands with these unorthodox methods? The jade pendant in his hand lightly shakes, the tassels dazzling. The Xiao Bao, surrounding Di Mingju, suddenly seem to have waited for the right moment, and they suddenly soar up. Bang 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 bang. The continuous sounds of fists hitting flesh resound like thunder. The trees around the courtyard are violently swaying due to the huge airflow. Along with the sounds of fists hitting flesh, Di Mingju's cold words are heard. Your feet are too slow. If I were to attack, your legs would have already been gone. Your internal force should have already filled your whole body when you made your move, and not wait until you made your move before launching it from your Qi Si. Remember, martial skills are used to kill people. It must be straightforward and efficient, no unnecessary movements are needed. If you can't utilize every bit of internal force to the extreme, you can't become a true expert. Han Yi is simply dumbfounded at the sight. Is this still his Jun Shang, who cherishes words like gold? Unexpectedly, he patiently teaches the little Gongzi during the fight. Moreover, he even says so much in one breath. Han Yi sourly thinks, don't even mention Miss Mayan, the words that Jun Shang has said to me in a year, I'm afraid that it's not as much as what he has said to the little Gongzi today. As Di Mingju and Xiao Bao crisscrossed, time slowly passes by. It's getting closer and closer to the quarter of an hour that was set at the beginning. 10 breaths, 9 breaths, 8 breaths, Xiao Bao's face and body are already completely soaked in sweat. For the first time, he feels powerless and frustrated. At this moment, he clearly realizes that even if the man in front of him lets him go like this, it's still impossible for him to win. But in those big, wet blue eyes, there's no discouragement or despair. On the contrary, there's a blazing flame. Because Xiao Bao believes that one day, he will become stronger than this person. Mother had said that she was still young and this man was much older than her. When she grew up, she would definitely defeat him. Di Mingju looks at the unyielding fighting spirit and flame in the little guy's eyes with satisfaction. He says a rare word of praise, you're even more outstanding than I imagined. truly worthy of being my son. The only thing lacking was that his temper was too bad. Humph, this must have been inherited from Xiaobao's father. Trash. However, before Di Mingju could finish speaking, an unforeseen event occurs. Just as Di Mingji was silently cursing Xiaobao's biological father, Xiaobao suddenly raised his little hand and formed a sword with his fingers. A ray of profound qi condensed into a blade and suddenly shot out. There's a ripping sound, and the jade pendant rope in Di Mingju's hand is cut. At the same time, little Bao's figure flashed out like a bolt of lightning and grabbed the jade pendant. The air seemed to freeze at this moment. Han Yi gapes, unable to close his mouth for a long time. Di Mingju's expression is stiff on his face, his eyes filled with disbelief. A rare crafty smile appeared on Xiaobao's eternally cold face. The clear and melodious voice of a child resounded in the courtyard, "You defeat me, Kala." Han Yi seems to hear the sound of his Jun Shang's heart breaking. Chapter 152. Jun Shang, you mustn't go crazy, aww. Even if you're crazy, don't vent your anger on your subordinates. However, what surprises him is that after a few breaths, Di Mingju comes back to his senses, but doesn't fly into a rage out of humiliation. His face was expressionless, but he said resolutely and decisively, "No, you're the one who lost. Because the time has come." Little Bao's little face instantly sank, and he said coldly, "He hasn't arrived yet. We're here." The two men turned their heads at the same time, fiercely glaring at Han Yi. "You tell me, is the time up or not?" Han Yi suddenly quivers. With a bitter face, he shakily says, "This subordinate. At the last moment, I was too nervous and forgot to count the time." Meeting the two people's murderous gazes, Han Yi simply wishes he could shrink himself into a ball and find a hole to burrow into. But he really didn't know. When the young master snatched the vermilion jade, did a quarter of an hour pass or not? This would probably become a riddle that would last for thousands of years, and no one would be able to confirm it. Di Mingju and Xiaobao simultaneously turned their heads, glaring at each other. "You lost. You lost. It's not time yet. We're here. You're shameless." Humph. Han Yi has never seen his Jun Shang so childishly bickering with others. Seeing that the two of them were in a stalemate, it was unknown how long the stalemate would last. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva. "Jun Shang, little Gongzi, how about this round? We consider it a draw." Hearing Han Ye's proposal, one adult and one child show hesitant expressions. Little Treasure opened her palm and looked at the vermilion jade in her palm. Her delicate brows furrowed slightly. Although when he confronted Di Mingju just now, he seemed to be confident. However, Xiaobao knew in his heart that he had actually lost. It was an unfair victory. Moreover, she felt that he didn't seem happy that this man would never appear in front of her and her mother again. Xiaobao frowned again. It wasn't that he was reluctant to part with this lecher. It's just that, after all, he saved his mother. So, should he admit defeat? Just like Nyangqin said, a man must openly admit his gains and losses, success and failure. However, he really liked this piece of vermilion jade. From the moment he saw this piece of vermilion jade, he felt a sense of familiarity, so much so that he didn't want to part with it. It was as if he had seen his mother. Xiaobao wanted to give this piece of jade to his mother. He felt that his mother would be very happy if she got her hands on this piece of jade. Unfortunately, he lost. A loss was a loss. There was no reason to deny it. With a cold face, Xiaobao slowly hands the jade over to Di Mingju. "I'll return it to you." However, the reluctance in those big eyes could be clearly seen. Ming-ju takes the vermilion jade, his fingers gently caressing it. Looking at Xiaobao's lingering gaze, a rare look of hesitation appeared on his face. If it was anything else, he would have given it to the little fellow. But this piece of jade, Ming-ju himself doesn't know where this piece of vermilion jade came from. He only knew that after an accident 5 years ago, this piece of vermilion jade had appeared by his side. The vermilion jade itself was not precious, even if there were mysterious patterns on it. Otherwise, it would be impossible to pass through the barrier of the 3 realms and be brought to the Yanwu continent. However, Ming-ju doesn't know why, but he's been carrying this piece of vermilion jade with him all these years. There's always an inexplicable feeling in his heart. This piece of vermilion jade is very important to him. Chapter 153. Although the jade is very important, but marrying Mayan is even more important. Ming-ju stretches out his hand in front of Xiaobao, slowly spreading it out. Do you want this jade? Xiaobao raises his small head, staring at him without blinking. Ming-ju expressionlessly looks back at him. I will only give you this one chance. If you don't want it today, you won't have another chance in the future. Sure enough, an eager expression immediately appears on Xiaobao's face. His white and tender little hand goes to grab the jade. Ming-ju's hand moves to the side, unhurriedly saying, the condition is that you cannot obstruct me from being with your Nyangqin. Xiaobao frowns and glares at him. Nyangqin will not agree to marry you. This is Ben Jun's business, it has nothing to do with you. You just have to promise not to obstruct and not to make trouble. Xiaobao frowns and hesitates for a long time. In the end, he can't resist the temptation of the jade, and signs a temporary truce treaty with Ming-ju. Mayan had a very good sleep. When she wakes up, she doesn't immediately open her eyes, but directly enters the space. That's because she feels an unusual internal force fluctuation in the space. This means that her Xiaobao has successfully advanced. Baby, you've finally finished your closed-door meditation. Mayan is just about to hug her baby son and give him a good kiss, when she sees Xiaobao hurriedly hiding something. Loneliness, unwillingness, and stubbornness flashes across his little face. However, when he turns around and sees Mayan, he immediately pounces over. Although his face is still expressionless, his big eyes are flickering, full of joy and longing. Before Mayan can hug Xiaobao, he has already hugged her tightly. The little body is buried in her arms, gently rubbing against her, indescribable attachment. But Mayan can feel her son's strange emotions. She casually thinks about it, and understands. She can't help but soften her expression. Hugging him, she softly says, "Baby, don't be afraid. Nyangqin is fine." Nyangqin was just too tired and fell asleep. Xiaobao nods in her arms, making a muffled sound in response, but he refuses to let go of her. Mayan can only hold him, gently patting and coaxing him like a baby. She felt gratified and amused at the same time. She didn't expect her precious son to be so spoiled and willful. After the mother and daughter made out for a while, Mu Yan suddenly remembered something. "Baby, what were you looking at just now?" When little Bao heard this, his body instantly stiffened, and he silently lowered his head. "Is it something that mother can't see?" Xiao Bao's long eyelashes fluttered for a moment before he said in a low voice, "Not yet." Mu Yan looks at Xiao Bao's expression and realizes that something must have happened while she was asleep. But since her precious son was unwilling to say it, she would not force him. If she wanted to know what had happened, she naturally had a place to ask. After Mu Yan left the space, Xiao Bao took out the vermilion jade again. Tightly pursing his lips, his big eyes reveal an unswerving determination. "This jade pendant, I will wait until after I defeat that lecher, then I will give it to Enchanting in a proper manner. After saying that, he looked at the fat rabbit at the side. He brought the jade to its mouth. Keep it for me. Don't ever lose it. How could a rabbit eat a jade pendant? However, the next moment, a miraculous scene occurred. The fat rabbit slightly moved its lips, and the vermilion jade in Xiao Bao's hand immediately disappeared. Chapter 154. After the fat rabbit swallows the jade pendant, it rubs against Xiao Bao's side and licks him with its tongue, as if it's assuring its little master that it will guard this piece of vermilion jade well. Xiao Bao touches the rabbit. The taut lines on his gloomy face finally relax, and a faint smile flashes in his eyes. He will definitely defeat that man. Then he will personally give the jade pendant to Enchanting. At that time, Enchanting will definitely be very happy. As soon as Mayan leaves the space and returns to the bed, she happens to bump into Han Yi coming in with the chicken soup. Seeing Mayan appear out of thin air, Han Yi is startled. But he quickly returns to normal. In the Shushan continent, a portable space can be seen everywhere, and it's not unusual at all. Although it's reasonable to say that it's impossible for a portable space to appear in the Yanwu continent. But Miss Mayan is the heir to the Shin musician. What kind of role is the Shin musician? That's the person who turned the three realms upside down in those days, who made all the influential families of the Shushan continent tremble in fear and panic when they hear about it. What's so strange about such a frightening and powerful legendary figure leaving behind a space of inheritance in the Yanwu continent? Miss Mayan, this is the black-bone chicken soup that Jun Shang specially instructed the kitchen to stew for you. You've consumed too much internal force in the ghost city, and lost too much blood. It's best to drink some chicken soup to replenish your vitality. Mayan takes it a few times, takes a sip, and says with a smile, "Thank you. Miss Mayan, please don't be polite." Moreover, Jun Shang specially instructed this subordinate to stew for you. Han Yi is rambling on and on, trying to increase his Jun Shang's favorability. But he suddenly hears Mayan casually ask, "When I was asleep yesterday, did anything special happen?" Hearing this, Han Yi immediately shudders all over, and almost reflexively shakes his head. No, absolutely nothing special happened. But as soon as he finishes speaking, he regrets it. He can't wait to slap himself. With this attitude, isn't it clear that he has something to say? Sure enough, Mayan lifts her eyes, and the corners of her mouth slowly hooks up into a charming smile. She stretches out a finger and beckons him. When Han Yi sees her action and expression, he immediately gets goosebumps all over his body, and his heart goes cold. That, Miss Mayan, if there's nothing else, this subordinate, will go back first. Mu Yan just looked at him with a smile and didn't say anything. She even slowly took a sip of the chicken soup. Han Yi hesitates for a long while, but in the end, he doesn't have the guts to escape. With a bitter face, he obediently walked in front of her. He thought to himself, Miss Mayan is sleeping like a log. Even if he dies, he won't admit that Jun Shang bullied the little Gongzi. Miss Mayan definitely can't know. Who knew that Mayan's next words would almost scare him to the point of pissing his pants? "Tell me, while I was sleeping, what did your Jun Shang do to my son?" Han Yi shudders, wailing in his heart. Wait a minute, he didn't say anything, how did Mayan know? The corner of Mu Yan's lips curled up, but a trace of coldness flashed past her eyes. He mistreated my Xiao Bao. No. Absolutely not. Han Yi anxiously says, Jun Shang treats the little Gongzi like his own son, how could he possibly abuse him? It's just a little friction, haha. Mu Yan makes an "oh" sound and looks at him meaningfully. In that case, tell me what kind of small friction it is. Chapter 155. Mayan stirs the chicken soup, and unhurriedly says, "It's fine if you don't say it, but I'll treat it as your Jun Shang abusing my baby son." Hee, Han Yi, do you know what happened to the last person who hurt my son? Han Ye's mouth twitches, and he inwardly says, how come I don't know? That Ghost City's Luo Fei and Magistrate Su only insulted Xiao Bao, and now their corpses have already begun to rot. Boo hoo hoo. Jun Shang, it's really not that this subordinate is incompetent and betrayed, Miss Mayan is really too scary. This subordinate thinks that the Yanwu continent is too dangerous, this subordinate should return to the Shushan continent. A quarter of an hour later. Mayan is still unhurriedly stirring the chicken soup, the smile on her face is faint, and her eyes are dark, making people unable to see through her emotions. Han Yi swallows his saliva. Miss Mayan, you're not angry, right? Mayan curls up her lips, smiling sweetly. How could I be? How could I be angry? I'm very angry. Di Mingju actually dared to bully her baby Xiao Bao, and even made the little baby Bei unhappy. Hee, very good, really very good. Han Yi sees that she's smiling like a flower, and really doesn't look like she's angry. He immediately breathes a sigh of relief. Miss Mayan, you mustn't say that this subordinate told you. Otherwise, I'll die very miserably. Mayan nods, resting her chin on her hands, and leisurely says, rest assured, I'm very grateful to your Jun Shang for rescuing me from the Ghost City. By the way, where is your Jun Shang? Han Yi is hesitating on how to answer about Di Mingju's whereabouts. But he hears Mayan saying indifferently, how about this, you go back and tell your Jun Shang to come to my small courtyard next door tonight. I'll personally cook and invite him to dinner, as thanks for saving my life. Han Yi suddenly widens his eyes, staring blankly at Mayan. He simply can't believe his ears. The situation has changed too quickly, he simply can't believe it. Could it be that Miss Mayan has finally been moved by Jun Shang, and is willing to accept him? Han Yi happily walks away dizzily, leaving Mayan sitting in the same place. She slowly hooks up the corners of her mouth. Her smile is like a gentle spring breeze, but her eyes are faintly discernible like stars. In the evening, Han Yi anxiously stands guard outside the room. It wasn't until there was movement inside that he suddenly rushed in. Jun Shang, you're finally back. The handsome man on the bed slowly opened his eyes and sat up. A natural majestic aura emanated from his body. The imposing manner of a monarch looking down on the world caused all living beings in the world to want to submit and follow him. This is Di Mingju, the king of the polar domain, and also the strongest person in the Shushan continent. Seeing Han Yi rush in without permission, Di Mingju coldly looks over. Just one glance makes Han Yi quiver, and he promptly halts his impatient steps. Greetings, my lord. He respectfully knelt down and saluted. My lord has returned to the polar domain this time. Has something happened in the higher realm? No problem. Di Mingju indifferently replies. What he meant was that Elder Chang and the others were just making a routine report. There was nothing major that needed to be delayed or dealt with. Han Yi breathes a sigh of relief. Jun Shang's real body is now staying in the Yanwu continent. Even if an avatar leaves his soul and returns to the Shushan continent, it can only be for a short period of time. Moreover, his strength wouldn't even be 1/10 of his original strength. If something were to happen in the Shushan continent, it would be quite unfavorable. Fortunately, nothing major happened. Chapter 156. Oh. Han Yi slaps his forehead and anxiously says, how could I forget the most important thing? Jun Shang, Miss Mayan has already woken up, and has already returned to the courtyard next door. What? Di Mingju abruptly stands up, glaring at Han Yi with a devouring gaze. Why didn't you stop her? No, it's not. Han Yi doesn't have time to be afraid as he continues. Miss Mayan said that in order to thank Jun Shang for saving her life, she personally cooked and prepared dinner for you. It's already time for dinner, Jun Shang, do you think? Wait for Ben Jun to come back, then I'll punish you for your crime. Di Mingju throws down a stern shout, and his figure instantly disappears. Such an important matter, and he's only saying it now. Han Yi is left with a bitter face, silently lamenting as he watches Di Mingju's disappearing figure. Shuxian continent is still better. Yinwu continent is too scary, let him go back. Woo woo woo. In the evening, the setting sun is like a fire. The courtyard behind Junji drugstore is quiet, without a shadow of a person. However, a candle was already lit in one of the rooms. As the candlelight swayed, it reflected the silhouette of a graceful figure inside. Di Mingju composes himself, then pushes the door open and enters. He sees a round table and wine in the room, as well as a young girl gently plucking the zither strings with a distant expression. The moment he sees Mayan, Di Mingju sucks in a mouthful of cold air, followed by a slightly disordered heartbeat and breathing. Mayan's usual attire is deliberately to make herself appear mature. But this evening, she seems to have just taken a bath. A head of soft ink-black hair drapes over her back, the dense steam making her beautiful complexion even more ethereal and otherworldly. Just like an orchid in a secluded valley, isolated from the world, yet with a fragility that makes people yearn to protect, and a charm that they long to pluck. She's only wearing a white dress. Her waist is tightened with a belt of the same color, making it look slender, like a weak willow swaying in the wind. The delicate collarbone that is slightly exposed, and the white, almost transparent ice skin, makes Di Mingju's mouth even more parched. A burst of heat frantically leaps down his body. Hearing the sound of the door opening, Mayan lifts her eyes, a pair of eyes flickering under the candlelight. Jun Shang has finally come. Di Mingju takes a step forward, inadvertently arriving in front of her. The door behind him closed on its own. One of them raised his head and the other looked down. As their eyes met, there seemed to be a strange flame burning between them. I said, call me by my name. Di Mingju opens his mouth, but it's this sentence. That persistent tone and childlike stubbornness makes Mu Yan want to laugh. Alright, Di Mingju. Aren't you here to eat? Don't you want to see the food I prepared for you? Di Mingju purses his lips, thinking, Ben Jun wants to eat you even more. But Mayan actually said that he had personally prepared the food for her, so he naturally couldn't disappoint her. There was a round table in the middle of the room. On the table, there were 7 or 8 bowls and plates. Each plate was covered with a porcelain bowl. Beside the lid of the porcelain bowl, there was still faint steam coming out. Clearly, as Mu Yan had said, it had just been prepared. However, when Di Mingju opens the lid of the bowl, even with Jun Shangdaren's grave and calm demeanor, he can't help but be struck dumb at this time. Only to see that the food on the plate isn't some delicacy that looks, smells, and tastes good. Instead, it's a black, charred lump of some unknown substance. The most frightening thing is that the juice flowing at the bottom of the plate is actually a terrifying dark green color. One by one, the lids of the bowls are completely opened. Chapter 157. Some of them even emit a pungent smell. Is this food that people eat? Mu Yan looks at Di Mingju's frozen face and stops plucking the strings. She props her cheek with one hand and looks at the man not far away with a smile that isn't a smile. What's wrong? Jun Shang doesn't like the food that I personally made. Di Mingju is silent for a moment, then expressionlessly says, I like it. Saying that, he sits down at the table, picks up the chopsticks and starts to eat. She watches him stuff the dark lump of food into his mouth, refusing it without batting an eyelid, and swallowing it. Even Mu Yen can't help but widen her eyes in astonishment. It should be known that she doesn't have a natural talent for cooking. Otherwise, she wouldn't have needed a little bean sprout like Xiao Bao to take care of her diet for 4 years in the mountains. Not to mention dogs, even the things that she makes are disliked. Even her dear Xiao Bao was determined not to take a bite of it. But this Di Mingju actually eats it all without batting an eyelid. She watches as he really finishes a dish. Mu Yan is a little unperturbed. You really want to eat it? Di Mingju casts a sidelong glance at her, coldly and indifferently saying, as long as it's Madame's cooking, no matter what it is, Ben Jun will love to eat it. Mu Yan. Who the hell is your madam? After a strange silence, Mu Yan suddenly hooks up her lips and chuckles. There's food without wine, there's wine without music, it's not a blessing in life. How about I play a song for Jun Shang? Di Mingju coldly stares at her, neither speaking nor moving. He has a seething appearance. Mu Yan instantly understands, Di Mingju. However, this time, Jun Shangdaran is still not satisfied, too unfamiliar. A posture that says, if you don't call me, I won't eat, and won't listen to the song. Mu Yan grits her teeth, and finally squeezes out 2 words, a Jew. It should be a very humiliating thing for a dignified Jun Shang to be called a Jew. But Di Mingju seems to be satisfied, and continues to eat the food that is even more terrible than pig's food. Mu Yan can't help but touch her cheek. Calling out, a Jew, in such an intimate way, Di Mingju doesn't have any reaction, but she herself inexplicably blushes and her heart beats, unable to control herself. After taking a deep breath and calming down, Mu Yan begins to gently pluck the strings. The melodious music flowed from her fingertips and slowly lingered in the room. Di Mingju was originally just concentrating on eating pig's food, and concentrating on looking at his wife. But slowly, he discovered that the blood in his body seemed to be gradually boiling. Then, all the heat in his body converged towards a certain part of his body. As for Mu Yan, who was not far away, in his eyes, every inch of her seemed to be filled with charm and enchanting. That small pink mouth that opened and closed slightly, that snow-white skin that was faintly discernible under the lapel of her robe, that plain white finger that lightly plucked the strings of the zither, it seemed to be stirring up the fire of lust within his body. Di Mingju couldn't bear it anymore. He abruptly stands up and strides towards Mayan. The sound of the zither abruptly stopped. Di Mingju picks Mayan up from her seat. His tall figure tightly wrapped around her slender body. His scorching breath landed on the girl's delicate and faintly pink cheeks. Mayan, Ben Jun is pleased with you. He uses a hoarse voice to say the words that had been buried in the bottom of his heart for a long time. His big hand presses down on the nape of Mayan's neck, and he leans over to grab those pink lips, ruthlessly ravaging them in an instant. Ever since they parted at Jin Hong Men, he was thoroughly rejected by Mayan. Chapter 158. Mu Yan's small mouth, her breath, everything about her, it's as if it's poisonous. With just a little touch, he's unable to extricate himself, unconsciously becoming addicted. Just like countless years ago, they should have been one, and Mayan should have belonged to him. Today's Mayan is also very well behaved and obedient, which is rare. Even though she was in his arms, she did not struggle or scold him. On the contrary, his eyes were even brighter than the moonlight. However, just as Di Mingju is about to take the sweet little mouth he's been longing for into his mouth, her pink lips opened and closed slightly, spitting out a lazy and smiling voice. 5, 4, Di Mingju stares blankly, subconsciously stopping his movements. What did you say? Mu Yan, on the other hand, was full of smiles. A hint of craftiness appeared between his brows, faintly discernible as he continued, 3, 2, 1. As soon as the last word 1 was uttered, Di Mingju feels weak and dizzy all over. For a moment, he could not stand steadily and was about to fall. He gritted his teeth and glared at the little woman in front of him. What did you do? The smile on Mayan's beautiful face becomes more and more like a flower. Why don't you take a guess? Di Mingju's eyes redden. He reaches out, wanting to ruthlessly rub this hateful little woman into his bosom. However, Mu Yan nimbly turns around and dodges it. A charming smile appeared on her bright and beautiful face. What's the matter? Why is your face so red? June. Mu Yan. Di Mingju growled. Mayan brushes back her loose black hair and says with a sweet smile, why is Jun Shang so angry? Do you feel very uncomfortable? Why don't I go to Yingchun courtyard now and call a courtesan queen over for you? With that, she leisurely turned around and was about to leave the room. Today, in order to scheme against Di Mingju, she has put in a lot of effort. Even his personal cooking, which he had not done for several years, was now being used. That seemingly dark, inedible food is actually mixed with a special draft concocted according to the prescription that Bailey Luin had left behind. Just taking it would not have any effect. Moreover, it was colorless and odorless, so no one would be able to detect it. But once combined with the sound of the Tian Mo Chin and the skill, floating like a dream. But it can spread out the efficacy of the draft by 1,000 times. Even if Di Mingju's strength is out of the ordinary, and his body is more valiant than an ordinary person's, he still fell into the same trap. Di Mingju dares to bully her precious son. Then she would let him know why flowers were so red. However, Mu Yan's hand has just touched the doorknob. His body suddenly soared into the air, his feet leaving the ground. When she came back to her senses, she had already been thrown onto the bed. The man's strong and scorching body firmly pressed against her, not giving her any room to move. Woman, you're playing with fire. Di Mingju's voice is unbelievably hoarse. His crimson eyes are looking down at her from above, ferociously glaring at her, as if he'll swallow her into his belly in the next moment. Mu Yan's breathing has a rare hint of disorder. How did you break free from the effects of the drug? It was written in Bailey Liuin's notebook. This kind of draft is modified according to the characteristics of some medicines before she crossed over. Even the cultivators of the Shushan continent would not be able to resist for a short period of time if they were struck by it. Mu Yan originally thought that letting Di Mingju burn with lust in this room for half an hour could be considered as taking revenge for Xiao Bao. After half an hour, the effects of the drug would naturally disappear, and there wouldn't be any side effects to the body. But she didn't think that. Chapter 159. No, that's not right. Mu Yan sees the man's flushed cheeks and his eyes are filled with lust. She thinks that this is bad. Di Mingju didn't remove the effect of the drug, rather, he directly resisted it. He wasn't completely powerless and unable to move, but he was still burning with lust. This time, she had really shot herself in the foot. Mayan's complexion changes again and again, just as she is about to open her mouth to say something. However, the man had already blocked her lips and tongue. A strong, overbearing, invasive aura instantly wreaked havoc in her mouth. It was as if he couldn't wait to tear her apart, swallow her whole, and assimilate her flesh and blood. And the hands that were hugging her began to be dishonest. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly constricted and she fiercely gritted her teeth. The taste of blood instantly filled his mouth. The man on top of her let out a muffled groan and regained some of his senses. However, he continued to stare at her like a wolf. Mu Yan swallows her saliva. I can give you the antidote. No. Di Mingju resolutely refuses. You are Ben Jun's antidote. Mu Yen. Believe it or not, I will castrate you, you stinking hooligan. Di Mingju's hand slowly caresses her warm and soft face. His voice is heavy, as if he's suppressing an endless tide of emotions. Woman, it was you who provoked Ben Jun first. As soon as these words come out, Mayan's body fiercely trembles. Memories from a long time ago came flooding back like a surging tide. The damp and dark cave, the man's body that was as hot as fire, the desire that was tormented by desire, and the tearing pain. Even after Di Mingju says these words, he also stares blankly, slightly wrinkling his brows. Why did this scene and these words feel so familiar? But in the next moment, Mu Yan's eyes have already turned cold. She flicked her slender fingers in the air. Zheng, not too far away, the Tian Mo Qin seems to feel its master's summons. It suddenly floated up from the table and hovered in the air. The zither strings follow the movements of Mayan's fingers, playing on their own, producing a noise like a torrential rain. The sudden sound of the zither startles Di Mingju. The force restraining Mayan also slightly relaxes. This was the moment. Mu Yan abruptly bends her knee and ruthlessly slams it into a certain, indescribable position of the man. With a loud bang, the bed collapsed, and the dust on the beams fell down. Immediately after, Di Mingju lets out an earth-shattering roar. Jun Mayan, you're murdering your husband. Ah! Mayan is standing not too far away, holding the Tian Mo Qin in her hands. Her long hair flutters without any wind, and her smile is charming, like an evildoer who can turn the whole world upside down. Where did this husband come from? Could it be that Jun Shang has forgotten that my husband is still buried in the ground? The one I'm trying to kill now is just a lecher. Di Mingju simply gnashes his teeth in hatred. Why was this woman not willing to be like other women, adore him, and submit to him? Could it be that those women in the Shushan continent who were like bees, who tried every possible way to throw themselves at him, were all fake? But the more Mayan acts like this, the more he loved her, the more he loved her. Even if her clothes were neat and tidy, her expression calm and carefree. But Di Mingju can only watch as his whole body heats up. He can't wait to press this hateful woman under his body, and wantonly rub her, making her a part of his body. It's clear that the draft's effect isn't the least bit useful to him. However, he found it even harder to control himself than if he had been drugged by the most powerful aphrodisiac. Chapter 160. Di Mingju stares at the woman in front of him, and slowly takes a step forward. But as soon as he moves, the sound of the zither turns into a blade, carrying a swift and fierce momentum as it pounces towards him. Mu Yan says with a smile, Di Mingju, are you forcing me? Seeing the coldness in the girl's eyes, Di Mingju abruptly stops. His congested brain slowly calms down. Of course, he won't force Mu Yan. This is the woman he wants to marry as his wife, to accompany him for the rest of his life. How could he bear to force her even a little bit? What's more, what kind of person is he, Di Mingju? He can't pursue the woman he likes, so he's actually forced to the point of using force. If this gets out, would he still have the face to stand in the Shushan world? The lust in Di Mingju's eyes slowly recedes, but the fire of unwillingness and jealousy burns up. You can't forget that man who's already dead. A man who's already dead. Can't forget. Mu Yan stares blankly at first, then she suddenly sobers up. Di Mingju is talking about her groundless lurking. Ahem. Mu Yan coughs a little guiltily. When she looks up at Di Mingju, she's already confident, he's my baby's biological father. I can't forget him, and my feelings are deeply rooted. Is there a problem? Di Mingju is simply angered to death by this woman. He's the dignified emperor of the polar domain, the #1 person in the Shushan continent. How could he lose to a dead man? In the end, is that man more handsome than him, stronger than him, or is he better to Mu Yan than him? Mu Yan looks at the man in front of her, his eyes spitting fire, his eyes full of murderous intent. She's about to explode from anger. But even if he's angry to this point, he hasn't hurt her in the slightest. Mu Yan's heart can't help but soften a little. She sighs softly and says, "Di Mingju, I don't know who you are, or what your identity is, but if you want a woman, you certainly don't lack one. Why do you have to waste your time on me, who is already married and has a child? Why do you insist on forcing me?" After living again, her heart has become too hard and too ruthless. Apart from Xiao Bao and revenge, there's no room for anything else. Moreover, there was still her unbearable experiences. Even if more than 10 years had passed, it was impossible to erase them from her life. Even her strength and Di Mingju's status are like heaven and earth. They were not suitable for each other after all. Di Mingju abruptly takes a step forward, looking down at her from above. He unwaveringly glares at her. If Ben Jun insists on wasting time, insisting on insisting. Mayan is sluggish. She slightly lowers her eyes, not daring to look at the man's blazing eyes. Di Mingju, just give up. Before she could finish, she was interrupted by the man's cold voice. Jun Mayan, Ben Jun said that if you aren't tempted, then Ben Jun will pursue you until you are tempted. If your heart belongs to someone, then Ben Jun will wait until there's only me in your heart. But if you want to throw Ben Jun off and abandon me after you've started, dream on. After saying that, Di Mingju doesn't wait for Mu Yan's response, he turns around and leaves. He was afraid that if he didn't leave, he wouldn't be able to stop himself from strangling this heartless woman. Mu Yan, who was left in place, was dumbfounded for a good while before he suddenly came back to his senses. "Wait, Di Mingju, tell me clearly. What have I done that you're accusing me of using you and then abandoning you?" This man was so shameless. "Jun Shang, you're back. How does Miss Mayan's cooking taste, you?" Chapter 161. Han Ye's voice comes to an abrupt halt under Di Mingju's murderous glare. He shrinks his neck, then shrinks his neck again, desperately reducing his presence. It's over. Miss Mayan must have retaliated against Jun Shang because of the little Gongzi's matter. If Jun Shang finds out that he was the one who complained to Miss Mayan, then he might not be able to see tomorrow's sun. Han Yi is just thinking about how to escape without leaving a trace. Di Mingju suddenly frowns and raises his hand slightly in the air. In a split second, several glittering golden characters appear in the air. "Jun Shang, someone has found traces of a Shin musician, return quickly." Di Mingju's expression suddenly turns cold, his whole body instantly tensing up. Even though he was just angered half to death by that little bastard Mayan. However, the whereabouts and news of the Shin musicians must not be leaked in the slightest. No one knows better than Di Mingju how cruel and ruthless the entire Shushan continent, and even the Shushan continent, were towards the Shin musicians 1,000 years ago. And no one knows better than him how the major forces of the Shushan continent are afraid of the Shin musicians. Although Mayan has inherited the Shin musicians' inheritance, she is still too weak at the moment. If those people know of the existence of Mayan, the successor of the Shin musician, the consequences would be unthinkable. Di Mingju says in a low voice, "In a few days, I will return to the Shushan continent." Han Yi also completely restrains his joking manner, frowning as he asks, "Jun Shang wants to use the Wanzong Gui Yuan technique?" Wanzong Gui Yuan technique, although it is also a clone of the soul. But it can condense into a real entity, and the time it takes to descend to the Shushan continent will be extended by a lot. But at the same time, Jun Shang's main body in the Yanwu continent will fall into a real slumber, without the slightest power to resist. Seeing Di Mingju nod, Han Yi doesn't say anything else, but bows and says, Jun Shang, rest assured, this subordinate will not leave your side for even a step. Right, Jun Shang, do you want to leave a message for Miss Mayan? For example, send another love letter or something. As for protecting Miss Mayan. Han Yi thinks that only in the Yanwu continent, those who want to hit on Miss Mayan should be mourned, right? Han Yi asks this question, thinking that Di Mingju will gladly pick up his pen. At the same time, he also asked him to send a few boxes of gold, silver, and jewelry over. Who knew that when Di Mingju hears this, he would gnash his teeth and spit out 3 words, no. Must. Yes. He was going to leave that woman hanging for a few days. Let her know that this emperor's sincerity and friendship isn't something that can be casually trampled on. In short, our Jun Shang is jealous, envious, and has a fragile heart. However, Mu Yan on the other side is completely unaware that she won't be able to see a certain Sundra Jun Shang for a long time. Early the next morning, Mu Yan takes Xiaobao out. Baby, in order to celebrate your advancement to heaven rank middle rank, mother will take you out to eat delicious food and buy new clothes, okay? Mu Yan is all smiles as she pinches her son's soft little face. Xiaobao's delicate and handsome little face is taut, his expression serious as he lets Mayan tease and ravage him. Mu Yan is tickled by her son's little adult appearance. She can't help but bend down to kiss his soft cheek. But little treasure dodged with a taut face. Mayan couldn't hold it in any longer, convulsing with laughter. It attracted the attention of passers-by. Chapter 162. Seeing that Xiaobao's face is red, Mu Yan finally stops teasing her son. Instead, she smiles and takes his little hand, continuing to walk forward. Xiaobao's face is bright red as he thinks Nyangqin is good at everything, it's just that, she's too undignified. So many people are watching. However, he can't help but tighten his grip on Mu Yan's hand, his big watery eyes twinkling with star-like brilliance. It would be great if he could always be together with Nyangqin like this. Hey, little Gongzi, please wait. Mu Yan and Xiaobao have just finished their meal and are preparing to go back. As they pass by Jinbao Pavilion, the owner of Jinbao Pavilion hurriedly runs out and stops them. Mu Yan stops and turns back with Xiaobao, looking at the owner together. The owner promptly shows a fawning smile. Little Gongzi, do you still remember this one? A few days ago, you bought a pair of white jade earrings in our shop. I wonder if you've already given them away. Before Xiaobao can answer, Mu Yan is already smiling and flipping her long hair. The owner's earrings are really exquisite, I like them very much. It turns out that the little Gongzi gave the earrings to Mississippi. The little Gongzi is really good to your sister. The owner sees that Mu Yan is less than 20 years old and looks very similar to Xiaobao, so he naturally thinks that Mu Yan is Xiaobao's older sister. However, Xiaobao doesn't accept it. His originally cold little face immediately turns frosty, and he grabs Mu Yan's little hand even tighter. The childish voice blurts out, "It's Nyangqin." The owner has experienced this little ancestor's terrible coercion. He shivers in fright for a moment, and almost escapes. But hearing Xiaobao's words, he stares blankly for a moment. Then, he comes back to his senses and promptly flatters even more. So that's how it is, the little Gongzi is really filial. Madam, you're really blessed. Mu Yan smiles warmly, shopkeeper, no need to panic. I don't know what's the matter for you to stop us too. It's like this. The earrings that the little Gongzi bought last time are actually, halfway through his words, the owner suddenly widens his eyes. Pointing at the white jade bracelet on Mu Yan's hand, he says in disbelief, how come this white jade bracelet is also on your hand? Mu Yan is also stunned by his words. For a moment, she doesn't know how to answer. Could it be that the white jade bracelet could not be in her hands? The boss stared blankly for a long time, but suddenly slapped his thigh, coming to a sudden realization and said, "Oh my, turns out that the godlike young master that day is a family with Miss and young master. These white jade dragon and phoenix earrings and bracelet are actually for you, Mississippi. I was worried to death because the master who made the earrings and bracelet once said that if the dragon and phoenix were separated, it would be an ominous sign. Now that the dragon and phoenix bringing prosperity are both in Madam's hands, I am truly relieved." As he spoke, he looked at Lil Bao in a reproachful manner. "Little young master, you and that young master are clearly family. Why did you have to go against the Dragon King's temple that day? You don't know each other, do you?" At this moment, the boss no longer doubted the identity of this family. Why? Because they were too well matched. Not only was the woman in front of him extremely beautiful, but there was also a kind of grace and otherworldly aura that came from her bones. As for the man from that day, there was no need to talk about him. With a single glance, one could tell that he had been in a high position for a long time. The most obvious one was this young master. Chapter 163. This was clearly an auspicious, happy, and wealthy family. Xiao Bao glared at the boss. Whose family with that shameless lecher? It's a pity that the boss didn't receive his fierce gaze. He was still praising Mu Yan with a smile. "Madam is really blessed. Your husband loves you so much, and your son is so filial to you, Mu Yan." However, without waiting for the boss to finish, without waiting for Mu Yan to ask, Xiao Bao directly pulls Mu Yan away with a fierce face. Along the way, no matter how Mu Yan asked, Xiao Bao refused to say anything. He couldn't compete with that man in robbing, and he also couldn't compete with him in martial arts. He wouldn't say such a shameful thing, he wouldn't let his mother know. Humph. Mu Yan has just returned to Junji drugstore with Xiao Bao when she discovers that there are a lot of people sitting in the originally deserted drugstore. That's because Junji drugstore sells very few special drafts every day. In the wee hours of the morning and early in the morning, there would always be a crowd of people who wished they could flatten the medicine shop. However, it would only take a quarter of an hour for these people to completely disperse. Because the special drafts are sold out. Since they were all sold out, what were they still doing here? Naturally, they would have to line up again the next morning. But what's strange is that it's already evening when Mayan comes back today. Not only is the shop not deserted, it's also crowded with dozens of people. As the host, Chen Qingfeng was cowering in a corner, his face pale and trembling. Yan Haotian, who was also in the living room, was tense, as if he was facing a great enemy. As soon as he discovers that Mayan has entered, Chen Qingfeng rushes over as if he has caught a life-saving straw. "Miss June, little Gongzi, you're finally back." If he didn't come back soon, he would have fainted from fright. Mu Yan indifferently looks over, and quickly understands why Chen Qingfeng is so afraid, and why Yan Haotian is acting as if he's facing a formidable enemy. Because at this time, the people sitting in this shop were all from the Ghost City. Ru Yan and Old Tao were among them. There are also some people who aren't ghost envoys of the Ghost City, but Mayan has seen them in Wanrenku and the beast-fighting Colosseum. They were all slaves who were used to seeing blood or cruel and ruthless outlaws. TSK, what is the Ghost City trying to do? Could it be that he was here to take revenge for what happened a few days ago? Greetings, Miss June. Just as she was thinking, she saw a middle-aged man with white hair stand up from the crowd. He respectfully cupped his hands towards her. This one is the Ghost City's King of Hell, Xia Yi. Today, I have disturbed Miss June, and I have specially come to apologize to you. I hope that you, as a great man, will not hold grudges for the offenses of a lowly man, and forgive our ghost city's rudeness towards you. Ga. Chen Qingfeng turned his head in a daze and looked at the middle-aged man, unable to believe his ears. Even Yan Haotian's eyes widened in shock. Just now, who did that middle-aged man say he was? Ghost City's King of Hell. God, that's the Ghost King of the Ghost City that even the emperors of Qi Yan, Jingqing, and Huangyao don't pay attention to. Ah. Why would he appear here? Moreover, the Ghost City's King of Hell actually came to apologize to Miss June. Chen Qingfeng felt that either his ears were damaged or he was hearing things. Mu Yan, on the other hand, had a leisurely expression, and sat down on a chair at the side without any joy or anger. Xiao Bao gave her a cup of tea, and Mu Yan smiled as she took the teacup, and hugged Xiao Bao in her arms. She sipped the tea, and unhurriedly smiled. Ghost King Xia, don't tell me you don't blame me for destroying the ghost city, and even emptying the ghost city. Chapter 164. Thump. Chen Qingfeng doesn't stand firm and falls to the ground. Oh my God. What did he just hear? Miss June, she destroyed the ghost city. How is this possible? That's the ghost city. There's only one in the entire Qi Yan country, and there are several pre-celestial powerhouses. Miss June actually destroyed it. Xia Yi hears Mu Yan's words and smiles wryly. Miss June must be joking. The matter the day before yesterday was my ghost city's fault. Even if Miss June destroyed it, it's still our own fault. Mu Yan says with a smile that isn't a smile. Oh. If you're not here to denounce us, then you've come with such a big attitude today. I said, today is our ghost city's apology. Xia Yi clenches his teeth and waves his hand behind him. Ru Yan and Old Tao immediately step forward and respectfully kneel down towards Mu Yan. Greetings, Master. Immediately after, those dozens of fiendish slaves also kneel down, shouting in a sparse manner, Greetings, Master. Mu Yan raises her eyebrows. What did you call me? Ru Yan raises her head, her pair of beautiful eyes watching Mu Yan. She enunciates each word. Ru Yan is willing to leave the ghost city and follow Master. Henceforth, if I have second thoughts, heaven and earth will not tolerate it. Old Tao also raises his head, speaking in a rough voice. I, Old Tao, also ask to leave the ghost city. Henceforth, I will be Master's person. I ask Master to not despise this Old Tao for his vulgarity. Those dozens of slaves don't speak. Instead, each and every one of them stealthily glances at Mu Yan. Mu Yan looks at Xia Yi. Ghost King Xia, what do you mean? These people are the ghost city's apology to Miss June. Xia Yi stands up and says with a dignified expression, I hope that all the conflicts in the ghost city the day before yesterday can end here. I don't know what Miss June thinks. Xia Yi's heart is bleeding as he says these words. This time, Xia An's ghost city's losses are really too great. It can almost be said to be a complete wipeout. Not to mention that all the treasures were plundered by Mu Yan, several halls collapsed, and most of the slaves of Wan Renku and the beast-fighting Colosseum escaped. The ones who are the most distressed are the 5 magistrates. 5 pre-celestial powerhouses, and not a single one is left. Do you know how many drafts and resources the ghost city needs to cultivate a pre-celestial expert? But as it happens, not only can he not pursue this matter with Mu Yan, he also has to send the person over to apologize to Mu Yan. They can only hope that this madam will forget the grudge with the ghost city and not trouble them again in the future. Otherwise, Xia Yi really doesn't know what kind of miserable situation that terrible man will make their ghost city fall into. Mu Yan, on the other hand, looks pensive. She looks at Ru Yan and the others, then looks at Xia Yi. Only then does she smile faintly. All right, then I thank Ghost King Xia and the Ghost City for their good intentions. After sending them off, Xia Yi turned around and left. Mu Yan lets Ru Yan and Old Tao get up. She slowly asks, after I was unconscious that day, what else happened in the Ghost City? Tell me in full detail. Ru Yan and Old Tao did not dare to conceal anything and hurriedly recounted the various scenes that happened that day. After Mu Yan heard this, he was a little startled. So, that person was so angry because of her. Had he done so much for her? Master, if we stay, will we be a burden to you? Ru Yan cautiously asked. Chapter 165. These days, she's been busy familiarizing herself with the Shin musician's skills and refining special drafts, so she doesn't have time to work. But she has long wanted to establish her own power. In this life, what she wants to do is to ruin Gong Qianque's reputation and make her lose everything. She wants to make Huang Yao's #1 sect, the Heavenly Road sect, fall apart and disappear from the world. No one knows better than her how strong Jing Cheng's royal family and the Heavenly Road sect are, and how complicated Gong Qianque's forces are scattered all over the place. If she doesn't have enough power and strength, how could she avenge the blood feud of her past life? During this time, Mayan has come to understand that Chen Qingfeng really isn't suitable for doing business. Originally, she was thinking about whether or not to hire a shrewd shopkeeper. Now that Ru Yan and Old Tao have arrived, Mayan feels a lot less worried. Ru Yan, from now on, you'll be in charge of Junji Drugstore's business. Old Tao, you'll assist Ru Yan. Tell those people who have crooked ideas that if they want to buy my Junji Drugstore's drafts, they must abide by the rules. Otherwise, I'll beat them out with a stick. As Mayan refines more and more special drafts, the effects are becoming more and more heaven-defying. It's impossible to say that there aren't people in Xia and who want to plunder, buy and sell by force. Ru Yan and Old Tao shiver, seeing the joy in each other's eyes. They bow and say, yes, Mississippi. They didn't expect that as soon as they arrived, Mayan would actually entrust them with such a heavy responsibility. This means that she doesn't treat them as outsiders at all. However, Ru Yan and Old Tao are happy, while Chen Qingfeng is dejected, almost about to cry. Mayan looks at Chen Qingfeng in amusement. Come with me. Chen Qingfeng hangs his head and follows her unhappily. After entering, Mayan picks up an orange, feeds half to her son, and unhurriedly puts the other half into her mouth. She asks, do you know why I didn't let you manage Junji Drugstore? Chen Qingfeng's eyes are red, and he's holding back his tears. I know, I'm too stupid, too useless. But Miss June, can you not abandon me? Don't mention Ru Yan, even an ordinary drugstore's shopkeeper is better than him by 100 times. If someone else had the heaven-defying drafts that Mayan had refined, they would have already made their business flourish and become popular in Xiaoan. But what about him? There's an empty mountain of treasures, but up until now, except for when drafts are sold, the entire shop is still deserted, and there's no income at all. Mu Yan almost choked to death on an orange. What did he mean by not abandoning him? Seriously, who did she offend these days? Every single one of them made it seem as if she had used them and then abandoned them. Cough. Mu Yan took the towel that Xiao Bao handed over, wiped her mouth, and said, all right, wipe your tears. How old are you? Crying in front of Xiao Bao, don't you feel ashamed? I'm not letting you manage the medicine shop because there are more important things for you to do. Something more important. Chen Qingfeng glares at Mayan with his rabbit-like red eyes. Mayan raises her hand and throws an ancient book in front of Enchanting. I remember you saying that you have some basic knowledge of alchemy. In half a month, digest the contents of this notebook. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Enchanting picks up the ancient book and flips it open to see the 3 words, draft chart, written on it. Chapter 166. The contents are very complicated and messy, like the miscellaneous notes of a person's experiences. But even a fool can see how valuable this notebook is. Enchanting blankly raises his head to look at Mayan. Miss June, why did you give this to me? This time, even Xiao Bao can't bear it anymore. Finally, he coldly spits out those 2 words once again, stupid. Idiot. Enchanting quivers, as if Xiao Bao's idiot had suddenly opened up his conception and governing vessels. His eyes suddenly widen, trembling as he says, Miss June, you want to teach me how to refine medicine. Mayan shakes her head, at least you're not completely stupid. But, this should be your secret, how could you teach it to an outsider like me? This draft chart is indeed Mayan's notes from her 4 years of studying medicine refinement in the mountains. If she were to take it outside and sell it to an apothecary, it would definitely fetch a sky-high price. But for the current Mayan, this really isn't a secret at all. That's because her true refining secret is no longer a formula, but the Tian Mo Chin, a Shin musician skill. However, she can't explain it clearly to a hothead like Enchanting. Mayan scowls and says in a low voice, a man of character, don't be overly sentimental. To learn or not to learn, it's just a matter of 1 word. Learn. Enchanting holds the draft chart in his arms like it's a treasure. He kowtows to Mayan several times, Miss June, don't worry, even if I don't eat or sleep every day, I definitely won't disappoint your expectations. Let's not talk about how Enchanting forgets to eat and sleep for the next few days, immersing himself in refining medicine. Let's not talk about how the Junji drugstore, under Ru Yan's operation and Old Tao's escort, became popular throughout the city. In the next few days, Mayan's attention is focused on the dozen or so slaves from the Ghost City. The Ghost City's Wanrenku is called Wanrenku. Naturally, the number of slaves inside is innumerable. And these dozen or so slaves, with just one look at their fierce eyes and the baleful aura they emit, you can tell that none of them are good people. However, Mayan expresses that she is very satisfied. I can give you a chance. Mayan sweeps her eyes over these people, and gets straight to the point, as long as you win, I will directly set you free, and guarantee that the Ghost City and I will not trouble you again. But if you lose, you have to obediently listen to me and work for me. Do you have any objections? The dozen slaves looked at each other in dismay, their eyes full of splendor. But no one was wild with joy. One of them, a man with a face full of scars and who looked even scarier than Yan Haotian, took a step forward and asked in a rough voice, who are we going to win against? Is it you, or him? The knife-scarred man pointed at Yan Haotian. With Old Tao's help in Junji drugstore, Mu Yan transfers Yan Haotian to Xiao Bao's side. He gave him full authority to listen to Xiao Bao's orders and take care of him. When the knife-scarred man asked, the dozen or so slaves looked as if they were facing a formidable enemy, nervously staring at Yan Haotian. In the Ghost City, there are only a few slaves who don't know of this ever-victorious lunatic number 3 in the Colosseum. Even if there are a few among them who have a higher cultivation than Yan Haotian, they have never been able to gain any advantage from his hands. Seeing the expressions of these slaves, the corners of Mayan's lips slightly rise, revealing a light smile that is indescribably bright and moving. Chapter 167. As she says that, she beckons to someone not far away, Xiao Bao, come here. Hearing Mu Yan's call, Xiao Bao, who was originally practicing, immediately runs over. Mu Yan touches her son's head. Then she leisurely says, "Your opponent is him. Are you kidding? Smelly woman, are you playing with us? A milk baby, this father can kill him with one finger." Mu Yan watches them quarreling and cursing with a smile that isn't a smile. When they're done, she blushes and says, "It seems that you don't want this chance." Saying that, she turns around to leave. Wait a minute. The knife-scarred man quickly stops her and asks suspiciously, "Are you serious? As long as we defeat this milk baby, you'll set us free?" "Of course." Mu Yan turns around, "I never lie. 1-on-1, or best of 3? Mu Yan is stumped by this question. She looks down at Xiao Bao. "Baby, how do you think it's more interesting?" Xiao Bao's little face is still cold, but a trace of impatience flashes in his eyes. "All of you, together." Mu Yan raises her head and smiles. "Did you all hear that?" The slaves of the ghost city are stunned, wondering if they're hearing things. A milk baby, who's not even 5 years old, actually says, "Together," in the face of these fiendish brawny men. Is this stupid, or crazy? After a moment of blankness, an ominous glint appears in the eyes of the slaves. They're actually looked down upon by a milk baby and a frail woman. How can they tolerate this? "Little bastard, since you're courting death, don't blame us for being impolite. That woman said it herself just now. Even if we tear this little bastard to pieces, you can't blame us." That's right, who let this smelly woman not know the immensity of heaven and earth? As they speak, more than a dozen slaves rush up like a swarm of bees with a fierce murderous intent. Mu Yan slowly takes a step back, wraps her arms around her chest, and watches this one-sided battle that's about to be one-sided. The expressionless Yan Haoyan finally can't help but look at her, then at the slaves besieging the young master, and shakes his head imperceptibly. He could already foresee the miserable future of this group of idiots. Don't be fooled by the smile on young Mrs. face. She would never let off anyone who had humiliated young master. Furthermore, these idiots wanted to defeat the young master. Dream on. Just as this thought flashed through Yan Haoyan's mind. With a loud bang, a huge body was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. If there was one, there would be two, and two, there would be three. Following that, the entire courtyard was filled with screams of agony. Then, one by one, the tower-like brawny men were either kicked away or lifted into the air and flung away. In short, after a short quarter of an hour, except for Mu Yan and Yan Haoyan who were watching from the side, the entire courtyard. Only a small figure stood proudly in the middle of the courtyard. Around him, there were many bruised and swollen men lying on the ground, screaming miserably. At this moment, all the ghost city slaves look at Xiao Bao. Not only were they shocked, but they looked at him as if he was a monster. This was just a 4-year-old kid. A child who didn't even reach their waists. Chapter 168. If this child isn't a monster, then what is he? Mu Yan unhurriedly walks up, looking around at the miserable sight of the dozen or so people. She chuckles. How about it? Do you submit? Some people open their mouths, wanting to speak up in anger. But Mayan's next sentence scares everyone's guts back. Baby, if there's anyone who doesn't submit, remember to beat them until they do. Xiao Bao clenches his small fist, coldly nodding amen. The dozen or so slaves present all shiver in unison. Then, under the leadership of the knife-scarred man, they crawl up one by one and kneel in front of Mu Yan. Slaves are willing to follow master. Mu Yan's expression hardens, and she says in a low voice, "Your master is not me, but him, Jun Machin." Mu Yan's hand presses on Xiao Bao's head, making it clear that Xiao Bao is the new master of these slaves. Xiao Bao stares blankly. He looks up at Mu Yan, softly calling out, "Nyangqin." Mu Yan smiles at him and shakes her head. She then looks at the dozen or so slaves. Any objections? If she had asked this question a quarter of an hour ago, these dozen or so slaves would definitely have laughed out loud. But now, if Mu Yan wanted them to recognize her as master, these slaves might still hesitate. Recognize Xiao Bao as master. The knife-scarred man clenches his right hand and presses it against his left chest. He bows toward Xiao Bao. Slaves are willing to serve the little young master as master. Slaves are willing to serve the little young master as master. The dozen or so slaves shout in unison. Mu Yan says again, "From today onwards, you are no longer slaves, and you don't need to call yourselves slaves. You are members of the Ink Camp, headed by Yan Haotian, and receive training and unified deployment. In the future, I may assign you all kinds of tasks, but you must always remember one thing. Your highest order and goal is only one, and that is to protect your little master. Anything that conflicts with this order, even if it's me who gives the order, you can refuse to obey. Do you understand?" After a moment of silence, the dozen or so slaves, or it should be said that they are members of the Ink Camp, bow in unison and respond in a clear voice, "Your subordinates obey." Xiao Bao looks up at Mu Yan in a daze, his little hands clenching into fists. Mu Yan looks at the respectful appearance of these Ink Camp members. She knows that it will take time to truly tame them. However, she was really not anxious at all. He believed that the process of training and taming these people would be very interesting. After letting Yan Haotian take these Ink Camp members to settle down, Mayan crouches down to look at Xiao Bao. "What's wrong? Is Xiao Bao unhappy?" Xiao Bao's little face was as cold as ever, but his big blue eyes were filled with grief and grievance. "Mom, Xiao Bao doesn't need anyone to protect him. Xiao Bao wants to protect Mom." "Silly child." Mayan laughs in spite of herself, gently stroking his head. "These people only know three-legged cats martial arts. They can't even beat Xiao Bao. How could they protect Nyangqin's baby?" Xiao Bao was taken aback and revealed a bewildered expression. After all, he was only a 4-year-old child. There were many things that he didn't understand. "Little treasure, you should know that increasing one's cultivation isn't the only way to become stronger. There's another way that can make you incomparably powerful. That is to gather a group of people who are willing to work for you, and let the strength of others become your strength." Chapter 169. Mayan chuckles. "Xiao Bao is really smart, but just defeating them isn't enough. Xiao Bao still has to make them willing to listen to you, and be loyal to you. Only in this way can Xiao Bao become strong enough. As strong as that lecher." Xiao Bao clenches his small fists, his big eyes become bright. "Then, I can protect Nyangqin." "Lecher?" Mayan stares blankly for a long time before reacting. Xiao Bao is talking about Di Mingju. She looks at the courtyard next door with a complicated expression. "Oh. I haven't seen that person's figure for a long time. Probably, that night, he was really angry, right?" In the next few days, the newly established Ink Camp collectively falls into an abyss of torment. Their daily living arrangements are like this: training, taking drafts, listening to tunes. Doesn't it sound particularly fulfilling and happy? But in reality, this group of butchers who crawled out of a mountain of corpses and a sea of fire, their hands stained with blood, each and every one of them is living a life worse than death. This so-called training isn't cultivating martial skills or internal force. Instead, it's making them line up every day, do drills, and run back and forth. It's so boring that these brawny men simply want to bang their heads against the wall. After training, Mayan prepares a bottle of body-refining draft for everyone. That's a special draft, ah. Outside the Junji drugstore, how many people would break their heads to buy it, but they couldn't. But the people of the ink camp drink it until they cry for their parents. That's because drinking that draft really hurts too much. The muscles all over their body feel like they're being cut by a knife. It goes on for more than an hour without disappearing. So every time it's time to take the medicine, they can hear the ghostly wails and wolf howls of more than a dozen brawny men. The evening arrangement is to listen to tunes. Isn't this a nice job? The people of the ink camp express that they don't want to listen to tunes again in this life. No, in the next life. In the next life, they don't want to listen to it again. That's because the sound of the zither has a terrible power. Once it's played, it's like they've fallen into an endless nightmare. They desperately struggle in the nightmare to wake up drenched in cold sweat. Think about it, listening to a tune every day is the same as living through a bitter and torturous life. Day after day, who could stand it all? Late at night, in the ink camp. Motherfucker, I can't stand it anymore, I want to escape from here. Escape? How could he escape? Not to mention Yen Haotian, who is guarding the camp. Do you think you can escape from this courtyard? I have to escape even if I can't. Are we going to be tortured to death here? More than a dozen people from the ink camp are gathered together, angrily discussing how to escape from the clutches of that female demon and the little king of hell. Suddenly, a coarse voice interrupted their indignant words. A bunch of idiots. Don't tell me you haven't noticed any changes in our bodies over the past few days. Hearing this, everyone was startled and looked at the knife-scarred man. Changyu, what do you mean by that? That's right. Who do you think you are? How dare you call us idiots? The knife-scarred man called Changyu coldly glanced at the few of them, his eyes filled with disdain. You entered the treasure mountain and obtained great benefits, yet you don't know anything and still want to escape. If you aren't idiots, then what are you? Changyu, speak clearly. What kind of great benefits did we obtain? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.